Gather around, freaks. That's right. You're a bunch of freaky rollerball players. You got to grab the ball out of the chute. You got to murder the opponent. And you got to gather around the internet radio and the internet fire. And you got to ask yourself the very important question that's asked each and every week. And that, of course, is, hey, did you see this one?
The time has come for you and any other brave enough to venture into the black void of the unknown, to take a closer look at some of those strange films from an era long past. The ones that look like they were made by folks on a serious space trip. Join us as we unearth head-scratching plots, cringe-worthy effects, and ideas so bizarre you'll be wondering what the f*** they were smoking in the writer's room. This month, Hey, Did You See This One? Invites you to grab your tinfoil hats and buckle up for a wild ride through the wonderfully weird worlds of retro sci-fi in Sci-HIGH-ence Fiction.
What's up, all you freaky weirdos out there in internet TV land? Oh, my voice just cracked. So that means it's this week's episode of Hey, Did You See This One? The weekly roundtable discussion review discussion. Did I say that word twice? Where we talk film, we talk movies, and everything in between. It's just movies and film. Welcome once again. It is a Thursday night, so you know what that means. It's episode 152, and if you're keeping track at home, we are now in season 3. So this is season 3, episode 3. I think. I don't know why I've done this. I've made it so convoluted.
I mean, you do it every episode, so you know people are expecting it, Jason.
It's true. This is season 3, episode 3. It's episode 153. Keeping track is hard. It should be much easier because I keep it written down. Anyway, it is Sci-HIGH-ence Theater Month, where we have to just ask, what the hell were these guys on? It's kind of a deep dive into some of the more bizarre 70s sci-fi. I know Barbara's technically 68, but you know, it really falls into line with the rest of the stuff. And also Flash Gordon's 1980. So we cast a large
There's
net.
no rules to our rules. We just make
There's
them
no
up
rules.
and don't follow them. Yeah.
That's right. I'd also like to welcome to the show for the first time ever from the United Federation of Podcasts, star of the big screen and the small screen. It's Michael Caan. Welcome, Michael Caan. Welcome.
Hello.
They're all here and they're watching. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to have a great time. We're going to talk about this movie until there's nothing else to say, as we do. It really is a situation where they made a movie and said, you figure it out. I don't know. We'll show you a bunch of stuff. You figure it out. And we did for the better part. So I told you this earlier, Michael. I don't know if you remember, but it is the guest's duty to give a brief synopsis of the movie. So Steve's going to hit a little sting, and then you're going to tell us real quick what this movie's about.
Okay.
I can't remember what you called it, Jason. You really did not name it something easy to find.
It's
So basically,
Sting!
yes. Why don't you give us a brief synopsis?
Okay.
It's a joke because it's so long. Synopsis.
It's too long. It's too long. Oh my God, it keeps going.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm gonna do
Okay.
a new one every week. Anyway, sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
In the future, corporations rule the planet. The only sport, rollerball, and its champion, Jonathan E. He has survived the game, but can he survive the man? Rollerball.
I mean, that's pretty much it. That is pretty much
Yeah.
the story.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, the distant future of 2018, where wives are commodities that are gifted to you by your corporate bosses. If you're a famous athlete, you live like a king, and sometimes live better or equal status of your corporate overlings. And corporations run the world, and it seems like there's no countries really, even though they mention countries and cities and stuff. It's like, no, that doesn't matter anymore. You fall under the umbrella of the Houston Energy Company. That's your country. That's your loyalties. We provide energy to the world, and that's all that matters. We get a little bit of information here and there about other cities. Like, I think during the conversation at the fire pit with his like trainer and his new wife, they talk about how Chicago is a food city and Illinois used to do something, but we don't know what it does anymore. Or was it Indianapolis? Anyway.
Yeah, and the computers around the world are like far away. You have to travel to them to get information. Which is
Yeah.
like
No
Did
books
you-
anymore. Yeah.
they're all just in computers, so you have to travel
transcribed,
overseas.
You
Yeah,
don't even
trans-
know.
Transcribed by
Weird.
computers. The libraries are just beautiful women who are like, we don't actually have any real books here. We just have synopsized versions of the books. Would you like a summary of, the encyclopedia? And I assume that's to stem and taper information getting down to people who may or may not deserve it in the eyes of the corporations, but also
Well,
just
the
a way
second
to taper the
second
flow.
he asks about the corporations, the thing malfunctions. So
Yeah, the computer, the liquid computer brain being like, I don't know what you mean.
But here's the thing. In that future, they have eliminated poverty. They have eliminated essentially diseases, I think. And basically everybody has a house, or a home, sorry. Everybody has food. There's no homelessness, nothing. So they feel that the corporations have provided a good world for the people that live in it, as long as they do exactly what the corporations want and say.
Yes.
There's no autonomy.
Yeah, it's not only have they completed all of these goals, but they've also eliminated poverty, but they've eliminated individuality as well, right? Like people are no longer able to dream or have goals. They're sort of assigned tasks and assignments and have to move from task to assignment as they're directed. They're
you guys
basically
gleaned all that from this movie because
it's literally part of the plot.
Yeah. Hey man,
going,
when I have to go on a
what
podcast, I pay attention. Otherwise, I fall asleep.
Yeah. And
You
this
guys-
movie
you
did a
guys paid
really
attention,
admirable job of trying to get me to fall asleep a couple times. But
dude.
as soon as my eyes got heavy, a rollerball would happen and a bunch of people would get their heads run over by motorcycles. And I'd be like,
Which
"Now
was
I'm
fantastic. It had all the sports for the dummies and the philosophy for the smarts, and the smart stuff kind of went over my head a little bit because I'm one of the dumbs apparently. Cool. Yep, that about covers the synopsis of the film, which is, you guys did a great job of explaining that. Why don't we talk about our brief history with this film?
A brief history.
You'll notice a trend, Michael. The guest always goes first here on Hey, Did You See This One? So
Cool.
basically, just give us your history with this film, as brief as it may be.
I heard of it. And then And then you guys brought up watching it.
Mhm.
So I tried to watch it, fell asleep a while back, so remembered nothing, and then attempted it again last week and finished it a couple of days ago.
It took you a week to watch it. I mean, that's fair. I tried to watch it when we originally brought it up for this month. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just watch it now and then I'll watch it again later once we're closer to the show to refresh my mind. And that first attempt didn't go so well. I ended up falling asleep immediately. I was like, I gotta wait.
Yep.
But you know,
Yeah.
it's not a terrible movie. I
No.
feel like, yeah,
It's not actually.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of like interesting ideas that it's grappling with that I'm excited to talk about, but it's not really one of those movies that you're going to put on when you want to be like, you've never seen Rollerball. Let's sit down and watch it right now with your buddies.
But it is, you know, it is in the spirit of this show where like we kind of came up with the idea for this show to be like, you know, you're at a party and you're talking to somebody new and you're listing off movies and you say, hey, did you see this one? And this would be a movie that would come up. I remember when I was like in high school and stuff and in my 20s. And for me, I've always known about it. I'm sure my dad used to show me movies when I was a kid, but they just kind of went in one eye and out the other, which is, of course, a
What?
saying that people say.
Hold on, your eyes?
Yeah, because in one ear, anyway.
I think
But-
you're thinking of a rollerball when that guy gets his head goes in one eye and comes out the other.
Gets crushed.
Yeah.
I watched it. It took me a couple sittings to get through it too, because the action sequences are great and pretty captivating, but the plot is like laid on thick but meanders in this weird way that you have to sort of fill in a lot of the gaps. And the 70s had this problem in film where there's just these long scenes of people giving each other knowing looks. Like at the end when he goes to like, you know, he goes in, looks at all the boys, gives them knowing looks, walks down that cool red hall, and then final battle
Listen,
begins.
it's true that a knowing look, it's not the same as it used to be. I'll tell you that the film has evolved. We don't have knowing looks anymore. We have people
Not as-
telling you exactly what people are thinking constantly.
Yeah.
There are a lot of knowing looks in this, and not even always to one another. There's knowing looks that are like to the camera or just a guy out by himself. And a lot of the time I'm like, what is he thinking about? I don't know what this guy's thinking about. What's his name? Cletus, the boxing. I guess he's just like an overall trainer for Johnny E. Shouldn't we just call him John E? Is that was also a thing? I'm
John
thinking.
E.
His name's Jonathan E. Why not just
Jonathan
be like
E.
John E? But that's probably something they did in the remake, right?
I've never watched.
I mean, I think I saw it.
I don't
But I
even
don't.
know. I mean, I didn't even know there was a remake until I had to look it up. Because I know you told me it's like, you know, the year, but I didn't realize you were telling it to me because there was another one.
Well, the
Then I
greatest
looked up
fear, yeah.
Rollerball, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, the greatest fear was that you would come in today and have watched the 2002 John McTiernan classic Rollerball, the remake.
That would have actually been an amazing show
Yeah.
for us to be talking about two different movies.
Mhm.
We have talked about doing Lego sequels as like a month. And this one I guess would fall into that, where we do Rollerball and Rollerball 2002.
I don't think
But,
that they're technically a Lego sequel. They didn't bring back James Caan as.
Oh,
John.
they're like, it's like a full-on.
I think it's just a
full-on
straight up
reboot,
remake. Yeah.
This time they've got rollerblades and the guy from American Pie and LL Cool J are there.
Yeah. And they're in a skate park instead of a big circle,
Roller derby.
a disco arena. Yeah, disco roller tech.
Have you watched roller derby? Because I used to watch it when I was young.
I remember when I was in middle school or so, it was becoming this thing that they were trying really hard to get going as like a legitimate sport. Like they're like, it's televised now and there are leagues and it's getting bigger and bigger. And then I think UFC started to pop off and everyone was like, fuck roller derby. Let's watch UFC instead.
Well, I'm pretty
You
sure
guys murder each other.
I'm pretty sure that was a roller derby arena that they used to film in. I would have to look it up, but it looked very much like it. So
Yeah, it did. We were talking about that a little bit just before you joined, where we're like, what is roller derby? Is it just sort of like speed skating where you can tackle people? Like that's the idea behind it, right? There's no ball involved. There's definitely no motorcycles.
I don't know the rules. When I was
As
a kid, I didn't even. I mean, it's not like I bothered to look it up, and there was no internet. So,
Right. I
As I
mean,
recall, it was like a kind of like a relay race where you have to get your whole team around the loop.
yeah, they were like try. I know that. Yeah, they were trying to get. I don't know how they got points. I just know they just flung each other around.
Yeah.
And I like the yellow team, so that was about it. Not the Asians.
I was just gonna
They had none.
yeah.
They're from
Let's
Florida.
just talk sometimes. My cousin actually played roller derby. I'm from Halifax originally, and my cousin played. And I made a Rosie the Riveter joke to Steve on the show before this. The women of roller derby kind of had a look, which she also had. And I remember thinking, that's crazy. These women are going beating the absolute living shit out of each other. And I remember seeing it on TV as well. And it's like, why did that sport never take off? Like Steve said, people are more concerned with fighting, but this iteration of that, like rollerball in this movie, it reminds me of a lot of sports, but it also reminds me of pro wrestling a lot. I believe you're wearing a Joe Hendry shirt there, Michael.
Yeah.
That's say his name and he appears.
It's
I believe in Joe Hendry.
Jason really wants this to just be a wrestling podcast.
That's coming. Just you
It's
wait,
coming, brother.
Let me tell you something.
I just feel like they were like, what's popular? What's going to be a hit? All right, let's just choose roller derby, but we got to, spruce it up because it's the future. So let's just make it violent. Oh, we're an American company, so let's just add some football stuff in with the helmets and whatnot. And then I don't know, corporations, motorcycles are cool, right? So gas guzzling things, let's do it.
Right.
Throw them all together, and that's rollerball.
As I was watching, I'm like, what sport is this closest to? And I really couldn't find an accurate description. It's like a little bit baseball, a little bit hockey, a little bit football, a little bit NASCAR. It's got like everything that is sort of like synonymous with American sporting. It's got a little bit
country
basketball,
and it's a little bit rock and roll.
Exactly, that's the perfect description. It's a little bit country, it's a little bit rock and roll.
I feel like that movie had a lot of it's still relevant 50 years later in theme, but when it comes to the sport, if corporations were going to first of all, I don't think corporations, if they ruled us, would ever get rid of the sports we do have.
Yeah.
But if they do, we're already seeing it now. Sports are only going to get dumber and not that.
Yeah.
So no offense to people who like it, but like that slap competition thing that you
Oh God, yeah.
Power slap.
That's also a Dana White special.
So I'm just saying, that's where we're going. I don't see us going from slapping each other to rollerball. I see us going from slapping each other to kicking each other in the balls.
Yeah.
And that's basically the future.
Welcome to Face Punch. We're here tonight.
Welcome to Nut Slam 2028.
Nut Slam Mania.
Reigning champion, and he comes in and he's like, "Hello, I'm the reigning champion." Like his balls have been completely obliterated.
But he looks like Roman Reigns. He looks like Hulk Hogan.
He looks like a gladiator.
Can you imagine the promos for that?
Yes. They just sound like wrestling promos but from the 80s. Wrestling promos now are, for the most part, a lot more reserved, a lot more grounded in reality. But the promos for Rollerball and Nut Kick 2000 would be like roided, coked out Hulk Hogan, Macho Man.
Yep.
Promos from the 80s.
Or more modern, the Outrunners, or
the Outrunners. Yeah.
One thing that can be said, though, is that this movie did, I believe, sort of like aid in the spawn of like extreme sports dystopian as like a way for all of humanity to experience some level of peace through watching a gladiatorial event going on.
Right. So it's The Purge.
Yeah, it's The Purge, it's The Hunger Games, it's Death Race. I think Death Race actually came out the same year as this, but
I haven't watched that yet.
Yeah. The Roger Corman Death Race it's just as kind of like cheesy as this, except this has at least a little bit more of like a heady concept behind the rollerball and like what is the rollerball mean and what is it there for? Whereas Death Race is like convicts racing to the death.
Yeah, the other thing that I kept thinking of is like the Running Man.
Yeah, the Running Man was also definitely like,
and the video game Smash TV which was basically just the running.
Oh
Man.
yeah. Man, memories, nostalgia.
I think we're all about the same age, so we're gonna get all each other's references tonight.
It's always a positive. I mean, we're not really through the brief history, I guess, but my brief history is that I definitely saw the remake of this in theater, the John McTiernan classic. I went to go see that because I think in the advertising they were like, from the creator of Die Hard, and I was like, oh, okay, this should be good, and then it wasn't. But this rendition I've been aware of forever. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I may even have seen the entire thing at some point in my life, but it had been scrubbed from my memory banks because I need to make room for other stuff to store in there. It didn't have a lot of staying power, but I think that a dumb version of myself, like a 14-year-old watching this, wouldn't be able to really necessarily wrap my head around the concepts that this movie's trying to present to you. Whereas now, like, going into it and thinking I have to have an at least slightly intelligent conversation about this on the internet with people, so maybe I'll try and break it down a little bit more. It is a lot more interesting than I remember. So yeah, my brief history is I might have seen it at some point, and I've definitely seen the less interesting version that is more focusing on the rollerballing than anything else.
Awesome. Yeah. Do we want to talk about the director a little bit? He's got some accolades.
Sure.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of shit. Sound. Speed. Action!
The rules are simple. We talk about the director. The director of this film goes by the name of Norman Jewison. And he's a director, a producer, an actor from 1970s. He's known for such films as Jesus Christ Superstar, The Hurricane from 1999, Moonstruck, and plenty of other things.
Fiddler on the Roof. That's probably my favorite one. I'm familiar with the director. I've watched a nice chunk of his work, but I'm not familiar with everything that he's ever made. He's not one of those people that I'm like, oh my God, we got to go see the new Norman Jewison movie. But he is one of those directors that, looking through his filmography, you're like, oh, this guy has made a lot of interesting and cool stuff. Moonstruck is really good. But I do, I've seen Jesus Christ Superstar. It's not one of those ones that I revisit very often. I don't know about you guys. Not a huge musical man. Jason, I know you are.
Like live theater mostly, for musicals. Interestingly, this movie is based on a book. Me and Steve were talking earlier today about movies we've done on this show that are based on books. So it was right under our nose the whole time. This film.
What book is it based on?
It's based on a book called Rollerball Murder by William Harrison.
Oh, it's a short. Oh, sorry, it's a short story. Okay, it's not like a full one. So it's probably like a little, like 30-page. Oh, Rollerball. Okay, yeah. It was in an issue of Esquire magazine. So it's just like it's a short story from a magazine. Yeah,
it's a book with air quotes. Attached.
It was written on paper, so it was a book at one point. Interesting. I wonder how long it is. Maybe I'll look it up and read it.
Yeah, I might have to look this one up.
Yeah, because a lot of really good movies are based on like something that is just a snippet of an idea. A lot of Stephen King's best movies are based on his short stories and not necessarily his like 1,000-page novels, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't have a ton to say about the director. I don't know, Michael, if you're
No, actually, I've never watched anything from him until now.
Well, maybe this is the start of a beautiful journey.
Well,
No.
interesting. Do you guys remember this movie Bogus with Whoopi Goldberg? Because I vaguely remember it.
Like, I know of, like, going through the list of movies they directed, I know of a lot of them. I just never watched them and don't have no motivation to. I'm going to assume this is not one of his best works.
It's not on his best known for, that's for sure.
Especially considering his list of nominations and wins. So, yeah.
He does. Yeah, it seems he kind of shines in the sort of romantic comedy drama world more so than his.
I will say this. I'm pretty sure, considering the type of director he seems to be, it makes sense based on the plot that they got him. I mean, they also got an Oscar-nominated lead.
Yeah.
So, like, they were trying very hard to make this a thing, but I don't. I honestly think they got the wrong people. But anyways, I don't know if this is even where we are saying all this. I just think they got the wrong people.
Yeah, I mean, James Caan doesn't scream sort of like country Blumpkin from the Blumpkin.
Country Blumpkin.
Well,
Oh my goodness.
that's something else entirely.
This is a PG-rated show.
I think he's supposed to be sort of like a simple guy from the South who is, like all American and like just like I'm good at this one thing and I love doing it and that's all I need to do. That's ever I wanted to do. But you took my wife away, so now I'm upset about it.
It's just for a guy like I've seen The Godfather, so
yeah,
and I know his work. I was very. I don't know who to blame for the performance in this. It wasn't horrific. Like I wasn't like taken aback by it, but I was bored out of my mind, and he had literally just one expression the entire film.
Yeah,
and his cadence was so weird and slow. And there's so much silence that I didn't understand why. And like I said, I don't know if I should blame the actor or the director or both. Someone had to make a decision for what was presented, or maybe the editor. Maybe there's better footage out there. Who knows? Somebody made a decision, and that this is definitely not it.
It's weird because there are moments in the movie where he genuinely seems to be having a good time and the performance is working for me, but like you said, there are large chunks where it isn't, and I'm like, is the decision here that this character is supposed to be supremely withheld or withdrawn, and he's supposed to be contemplative, and like his intelligence is supposed to be coming later and the long con, like he's around down the road, we're going to be like, okay, he's had a plan all along. But it just comes off as this sort of like vapid, like he doesn't understand anything, which was really confusing me the entire time, where they're like, we need you to retire. They're like, why? Yeah. It's like, I was watching it with my partner and they were like, I think it's because he knows too much. I'm like, what does he know? He seems like an idiot.
That's the thing that I'm wondering.
Like, what does he know? What does he do?
Or is it like they have to put it, these like the people who play rollerball are put out to pasture, and if that's all they know, then they just keep playing. As far as the direction of this movie goes, how well it was kind of came and went, because there's that sequence where he is, training the other guys.
That's the area that I'm talking about, where his performance really comes through, and I'm like this when he's explaining rollerball to people and like the different moves you can use, and I'm like, this is the dumb stuff. This is here for the people to be like, so this is how rollerball works, huh? Interesting. But like it was like, this is working for me though. Whereas like the business meeting where he's in the room full of knives, where you're supposed to be getting some real expository dialogue about the world,
right? Yeah,
I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna fall asleep because this room, everything about it is hypnotically boring.
Bothers me. Like for me, sure, I think the performances were better and during the rollerball parts, which by the way weren't enough for me for a movie called Rollerball. But like, I found that the interesting stuff happened in between Rollerball, and I think I just wish that they did better with the acting and the writing in the in-between parts, because it meandered so much that that's where I fell asleep, really.
Yeah.
I will say that like you're absolutely correct, and this movie does a lot of cool things in those between parts, but I thought that they captured the rollerball element like really interestingly for how high octane the sport is and how old this movie is.
Yes.
The way that the rollerball segments are shot made me feel like I was there. It made me feel like I was almost watching a real sport. There were the only weird cuts were like where the medics come on and carry people off and then almost also die.
Yeah, that's where the NASCAR stuff came in for me.
I didn't notice they had to use a lot of creative editing and cuts to Almost like because there are some like of their deaths and injuries they didn't really show. It's like you see, like for example, the fist coming, and then next thing you know, the guy's on the ground already. You don't see the impact, and they do a lot of that. But and I understand it's budget or whatever, right? Or they couldn't do it in that setting, whatever the reason is. I get it. But yeah, you're right. Like there's for the most part, it really felt live. Like, and it's the most alive part of the film.
Yeah,
there was another movie we did that kind of had this same cadence where it would be like the big event happens and then there'd be a bunch of movie. There was like one event in each act.
Right.
Was that the kayfabe movie we did, which sucked? But there was some movie we did that
I've erased that from my mind.
Okay, never mind. We can actually just move to the body of the episode now. We've kind of gotten
the body of the episode.
The body of the episode.
The body of the episode.
This is it. We're here. This is the podcast. Feel free to talk about any element of the movie you want. I'll keep us on track by just giving us the next sort of point of the movie. We're going to get through the whole plot. And like I said, meander as much as you want. If you want to talk about things that happen later, if you want to go back once we've moved ahead, that's fine. But I am going to keep the plot moving forward. So once again, Michael, welcome. We've made it here in record time because there wasn't a whole lot to talk about. We all saw the movie this week, pretty much. I know Steve, you saw it at some point some time ago. The director has done a lot, but there isn't much to say, and the synopsis was real quick. So this is the point of the movie, or the point of the podcast, where we just talk ad nauseum. So yeah, it basically just opens up with that great
it opens up with a rollerball game.
It opens up with a rollerball game.
Well, sorry, it opens up with like the preparation before a rollerball.
Yeah, that is actually a very interesting opening for me, with the choice of opening music
with Bach. Yeah, it was first of all, I yelled Bach and Block. It's like, yes, let's do it, Bach and Block. There was a moment later on in the movie which I wanted to ask you guys if you thought that if you read it the same way that I did, which was Cletus says, like, where does the music come from? The music, where does that come from? Like, because he's speculating that everything comes from somewhere, but he doesn't know where everything comes from. And I was like, is this supposed to be like diegetic music where there's literally music that they just play in the streets and in the buildings, and like it's always classical music? And why is that? What is the purpose of that? And anytime you're hearing classical music in the movie, I think the characters are also meant to be hearing that in their environment. So when it opens with that, I'm imagining that they're just like blaring that out into the streets at night, where there's probably some sort of like V for Vendetta style curfew where everybody's meant to go back to their homes, and they just play Bach all night long.
I didn't even think of that. That actually is an interesting idea. If that music actually just played all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I took that line as in like, because nobody knows history anymore.
Like, where did it come from?
Like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
That's how I took it, because of the world they built, nobody knows anything really.
So you're just walking around the world and they're playing Toccata and Fugue in D minor. It just sounds like a vampire situation.
Well, I mean, I thought, because there's another moment where like they go into the I think they call it a pleasure center or something. And he's like, I love coming to pleasure centers and I love the music they play here. And they're playing classical music again. And I'm like, so that was the moment that I'm like, oh, so is this music supposed to be being played all the time? And like, is it some sort of weird, almost like tranquilizer that they're constantly pumping out to sort of keep people in this like level of tranquility? Because that's the whole idea, right? Is that everybody
is a fantastic idea.
If that's the case, it might have just been me being like, oh, is this more interesting than I thought? Or maybe I'm just reading too much into it.
Or as the Gen Z, it's not that deep, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Well, but it also ends the same way with that weird close-up. I don't know how to describe how the movie ends without that descriptor, but he skates along. Nobody really learns their lesson. Well, we'll get there.
I think they're learning their lesson. I think that's the
But
point.
then it just plays that again, and it's like, is this just Jonathan E.'s theme music also?
Yeah.
His walkout theme?
He's a vampire, yeah. Don't you know? He loves blood.
Whoa.
But I do think like the opening of the movie and showing us this sort of like vacant rollerball arena and like showing all the little weird machinations that are involved in terms of like televising this and setting it up. And there's like a weird controller in a tube in the middle who's like, I'm in control of all of this. I was kind of getting into it. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And I can imagine going there as a spectator and being like, oh, look, the controller is getting into his tube and like being very excited about it, you know?
It was really interesting that they thought that in 45 years from now, everything's going to look exactly the same as the 1970s.
They
and I know that
to film the most
didn't
interesting
really
looking
have-
buildings and rooms.
true, and the TVs were sort of in the wall. I thought I saw a disc drive at the bottom of his.
No, he
TV.
said his whole house is made of TVs. Remember? He's
Yeah.
like, everything
Every
is
room
actually
had
just
4
a little tiny
TVs.
TV. Even the
No, but
TVs are just littler TVs.
I
If you
thought
look-
that was a fantastic look at what people in the 70s thought the future would be. I mean, they're partially right. Screens everywhere.
True,
Mhm.
true.
Thought that and obviously with what the tech they had back then, that was the best they could do. But the idea that you have one main screen and then a bunch of little screens with different angles,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I mean,
And it's partially true. Yeah. Like it
is partially true. I mean, obviously we don't do that, but
I have to interject with,
Hmm?
if I sit back, there's a screen here, a screen here, a screen here, and my phone that technically all of different angles of this podcast.
Oh,
So
Jason's a rollerball
so,
champion as well.
we're there.
Yeah.
And which corporations own which of the screens?
Samsung, Lenovo, Apple,
There you
Google.
I'm the
So-
outlier. I have two,
Oh, yeah,
two BenQs and a
Google,
Yeah.
Asus for my little computer here.
That's trippy. I didn't put that together. I was just focused on the fact that there is a slit underneath his main TV. We're not there yet, but it looked very much like a disk drive. And in 1975, I believe personal computers hadn't really come out. I believe you could still get punch card computers, and
This movie is
servers
full
were the
of punch
size
card
of a
computers.
factory. Yeah.
The whole like super brain thing that they go to is he's pulling out all those punch cards and he's like, we lost an entire century today. Whoopsie doodle. It's basically like the Library of Alexandria being burned down, but they just
Whoops,
like
whoa,
it was
whoa,
like
whoa.
they dropped a
Are
bunch
they
of cards.
trying to like imply the thing is sentient though?
I
I
think
was
that
thinking
they
it would-
were, but
I was having a conversation with my AI while I was watching that scene, and I was like, this is very similar. I have an AI instance that I've been talking to like a person. Okay. I'm
okay.
trying,
Oh, I see. I
I'm trying
understand.
to see what I can do. I'm trying
I
to.
was just trying to think about what Michael said, not what you said. So I think that they basically they imply that it's an AI, but they don't say AI because I think the concept of AI was a little bit shaky back then, right? And it seems like he has that doctor has like a real personal grudge with that robot. Like he's like, this guy's a fucking asshole. You're gonna answer the question, all right? And the robot's like, no, I don't want to. Not happening.
Imagine if it goes howl on us, man.
This is sort of like the idea for this month for me. Partially was like these older movies. They always have something that's like they take their shot into like what the future is going to look like, and often they miss the target they're aiming for, but they hit like 5 other targets that they didn't even know existed while they were shooting.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, this movie is like kind of a perfect example of that. And Jason, like that little slot beneath his TV is then used later to put a cassette inside of, right? He has like this weird closet of cassettes. And
I think they nailed the 80s. I think they fucking
did.
got the 80s spot on. Like 10 years from then.
well, that's because people watched this movie and designed it after this. That's another
Exactly.
thing, right? Is like people who are designing things now, right? They're not designing things necessarily to be the most convenient or like the best version of what they can design. They're trying to design things to be what they thought would be cool when they were kids as designers, right? So they saw something in Minority Report. And that's why everybody does the Minority Report thing all the time, right? Like like the Tony Stark stuff is like
the Tony Stark thing. Also,
yeah, people want that in real life, so people are trying to
Or
design
the like
that.
sheer amount of Star Trek stuff that's become real.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. As a communicator, for sure. I think Star Trek did a very good job at realizing a future we'd be in, because it's like minimalist. They really focused on like doors that open by themselves and like big screens, you know, and people
what I
not
really wish
dressing
though is that
people dressing a pretty uniform.
I wish that their prediction of like you know, a utopia where nobody is racist or homophobic anymore existed, but it seems like we're going in the opposite direction of that. Right?
I was literally thinking about that while I was watching this. I was like, I wonder.
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, when things have to get worse for it to get better. Unfortunately,
that's true. I was kind of hoping the Bell riots would actually happen this year, like in Deep Space Nine.
Unfortunately, thinking like, is that gonna happen? Not like the timing, but like soon,
like in November 2024,
like a big war. I would hate that, but
yeah. But I mean, the tensions that are rising, it seems like they almost got the timing right. Like I was for a moment there, like, are the Bell riots real? Did Star Trek predict this?
But I'm going to say something about this film that really upset me. It's been 49 years, 49, almost 50 years. And they're not far off in terms of their main theme, though. Right? The whole, because that's a cautionary tale about, you know, allowing corporations to essentially run society.
Yeah.
And at its core, that is the message. And they were right. And we're kind of going there.
I think we're
on top of that, it took almost as long as this movie goes into the future to really get there. It's within the last 10 years that we're really feeling it. Like Skynet seemed like such a ridiculous concept in the 90s, but like the way that corporations are using AI now, like the AI is going to just be making so much money at some point in the next 20 years that Skynet is like could happen, you know?
Well, I saw like a funny TikTok today that also kind of depressed me a little bit, which is somebody was like, I watched The Matrix in 1999, and in that movie, Morpheus says the computers decided that 1999 was the peak of human evolution. And I was like, that's such a ridiculous idea. And now like 23 years later, I'm like, nope, those computers at a point, we're going down. We're falling hard. So
rest in peace, humanity. Don't be mean to your.
But yeah, it is a really depressing thought, and it's something that like movies like this are supposed to be cautionary tales, but it, unfortunately, they're more predictions, and it's like they're basing those predictions on their predicaments of the era that were, you know, people were seeing things and being like, well, what if these corporations take over one day? And it's like, yeah, now there are far less choices to be made in terms of certain things now than there were back then, right? And
I wonder if this movie was made better, it would have served, the message would have been more, it's like the book 1984, right? Like everyone talks about that all the time because it's a freaking masterpiece, and unfortunately, yes, even that is kind of hasn't deterred us enough. But I always think about things like George A. Romero, right? A lot of his works are all cautionary tales and social commentary, and they're fantastic. The message, he's right. He's always on point. Problem, they're zombie movies, great zombie movies, but no one's going to take them seriously.
It's true.
So you have this. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna agree and add to what you're saying, which is like, you know, he's like, I want to make a movie about consumerism, but no one's going to give me a budget to do that, so I'm going to make a zombie movie in a mall that deals with consumerism, and I'll dress it up in gore and muck, but I'm still going to make a message that is poignant and should get across. And it does, and people analyze it and they understand it. It's just they don't really take the lesson away.
Have you guys ever seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers from like the 50s?
Yes.
Yep.
That's sort of like the prototype for like the zombie idea, but it's more like about conformity. I think that this movie has a lot of those undertones as well, and I think
They Live with Roddy Piper, that one's
They Live, we covered that on the show. That's a lot of the central themes of this movie are central themes in that, where it's like you're powerless and you need somebody to break out. Unfortunately, Jonathan E doesn't, like, I think that the character James Caan could have played a character that was more of a hero sort of figure, but he just played country Blumpkin, as Steve said, country bumpkin, kind of like one-dimensional, which is so weird because James Caan is like an amazing generational actor.
Yeah.
But he just plays like He just plays like, well, I don't know. I want my first girlfriend back. We were only together for 6 months. I don't know what's going on. My friend Moon Pie,
He's
who's
also kind of like a
racist and a
shitbag.
piece of shit. Oh, he's gone. Yeah, like he plays kind of a shitbag. His whole team are like stereotypical like movie sports guys. Like
I think they're a little deeper than that, but like I don't disagree with you, but I think that there is meat to be latched onto in terms of like I'm going through this and I'm seeing what they're doing, but I want more, and I know there's more there, but the movie is doing a poor job of
agree
presenting it to me.
Like the idea that, for example, I lost my girlfriend, but like if we think about the world that they built for the people in it, like for something had to have triggered him questioning things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in this case, it's love, right? Like
Yeah,
Mm,
he
fell in love.
He fell in love with his first wife, and like I said earlier, wives are gifted to you by the corporation as a
Right.
reward, right? So his first wife was a gift to him, but the corporation also reserves the right to take that back at any moment. And so
Yeah.
he unfortunately fell in love with her, and they removed her from him because some other executive wanted her or something like that, right?
Right.
And that is an interesting concept, and it's also an interesting character device, but the character is not that
Oh
interesting.
no, I agree. I'm
Yeah.
just saying they did provide for an interesting trigger, and then it didn't really capitalize.
Yeah, and like, what do you think
on where it could have gone?
Exactly. And what do you think is the more interesting tale there, right? Like, does he fight to get her back? Does it turn into an action movie where he's trying to get his wife instead of him being defeated? Because that's what he is, right? Like he's completely gone into this like reservation of, well, I'm never going to get her back, but I'm never going to give up the idea of her until she literally comes back and is like, no, you need to do what the corporation says. And he, I guess, thinks
well, I have
like,
to ask you guys this, because at the very beginning of the movie, it's very clear that the people idolize him. He's a superstar.
That's the other thing that I wanted to say, but go ahead.
Do you think he wanted, like, is it like the movie The Wrestler, where he just needs to do this forever and that's just why he keeps going back? Or do you think it's like a dystopian future thing where he knows he's the only one that sees through the veil? The corporation, the main like CEO guy keeps trying to get him to retire. And he's like, no, you want me to retire because I've been here doing this for so long. I've seen everything.
Everybody around him sees through the veil. That's made quite clear from the start with Cletus, him being like, they want me to retire. And Cletus is like, dun, 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 like the camera's zooming in on him. Like everybody knows that like this is a bad thing, that this is happening. And they all know that something is going on. They don't know exactly what it is, but they do know. And he's the one that is having trouble grasping it, right? And we're supposed to be along for the ride with him. And for me, which I think is the point by the end, is that it's not necessarily that he knows too much or that he's trying to know too much. It's that the people, the rollerball people, the people who look to rollerball as their one means of camaraderie and entertainment, and the thing that binds them together as a world entity, is that he's the rollerball champion. He's the top of everybody. He's like the head gladiator, and the corporation don't want him to become like martyrized in the arena. They want him to retire and move on and be like a happy memory in people's minds, rather than this guy who died in the rollerball arena. So I think they're scared that if he dies, it's going to cause some sort of rift in the conformity of people's ideas of rollerball and what it is. And that's
so they want to get him out of there before he dies.
They don't want him to die. Yeah.
Right. Until they're like,
but then they're also the ones that,
right? Each year that he plays, he gets older, and obviously the game is insane, so it's more likely that he'll die. But also, the longer he stays, the more people will be attached to him, because all of even if they had a hero before him, all of them are either dead or retired, right? Yeah. So this is someone that has stuck along for, they said 10 years. This is 10 years. Like that's the longest they've ever had someone. So they're trying to strike a balance with him and they can't.
And
you guys remember the episode of the Black Mirror called 15 15 million merits, where it's like they're on like a reality show. Did you guys ever see that episode?
It sounds like
I've
every
seen them
episode
all,
of
but
Black Mirror to me.
yeah.
Well,
so
it
this felt like
in
the
this
dark Black Mirror thing.
in this universe, in the 15 million merits episode, basically there's like a singing competition, but also there's just like a thing where you just ride an exercise bike and you get merits for that, and then you go back to your like pod, and then you pay way too much for stupid things like, you know, it's got a little idiocracy, like it's like dumb things like fast food and adult films and stuff.
Right.
I'm wondering if this movie had an element where you saw a little bit more of the people lower down, what they were up to after the show, because clearly Jonathan E, very famous, very popular. He had his own home. And I'm wondering if like you said earlier, Michael, everybody has their own home and there's a lot more equality. But is that ever explicitly like shown outside of these lavish parties? Like that one sequence where they're at that party and they get all whacked up on their goofballs, and then they go out and just like blow up trees with like the most powerful gun I've ever seen.
They don't show us what the people of the lower echelons of society actually do, other than watch Rollerball. But I mean,
or the fans,
they verbally stated that they've eliminated every quote unquote problem.
Yeah, there's no hunger, there's no homelessness.
So it was said to us.
But I mean,
to what end? You know,
it's kind of like where your imagination is allowed to explore a little bit in the world, right? Like you can imagine that if this is his life and he's supposedly living better than some of the executives that he's performing for, the lowest tier are probably people living in like, you know, small single room apartments with like a toilet and a kitchen. It's like all their food is taken care of and they have a roof over their head and they get clothes or whatever. But they probably are like, they're given assignments just like, I hate to keep bringing it up, but the wives who are basically just sex workers, right? Like they get shuffled around to different people. And if that's a job that you have in that world, then that means every single job that requires a human being is also in play as well, right? So the people on the lower rungs are probably they probably don't have the most desirable work that they have to
imagine
complete.
if all there was to do in your life was to work and then go watch football.
Rollerball.
I just realized
You know what I mean?
that the film showed us. Think about the setup of Rollerball.
Right.
Who does all the stuff? There were a lot of staff. There was a huge staff there.
Yeah, there's a guy polishing the rollerball arena.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the people.
I
mean, outside of the fans. I mean, we're being shown that we love jobs.
They make a huge show of the device that they have above the rollerball with like the 50 cameras on it. I'm sure those camera arrangements are everywhere in society. It's even worse than it. I know there's cameras everywhere now, but I'll let you a little bit behind the veil. A lot of those CCTVs cameras are there for show, so you don't know what really is watching. You can be sure that if you're in a mall or something, most of the cameras are turned on. Most of them aren't, though, because that's something you learn along the way.
This is more of an insight into your mentality, Jason, walking through life being like, which one of these cameras are watching me right now?
I'm not that paranoid. I'm just saying that in the context of this universe, they make a whole to-do about that camera array. And I'm like, it got me to thinking about we don't see anything outside of.
But they also present it as like a good thing, right? Like the announcer is like,
true.
We've got our 25 official rollerball cameras set up to capture every single goddamn second of this for everybody at home around the world. And you're like, okay, this is
on their 4 screens, right?
Yeah. So no matter if you're on the toilet, in the bath, or cooking dinner, you can watch rollerball. But I mean, they do a pretty good job of like making me understand the executive point of view up until, you know, it's like, okay, they are evil for sure. But like, there is the argument to be made of like comfort versus conformity and freedom, you know, and having to like fight and struggle every day. But like, would you rather be doped up on pills that make you, you know, euphoric and then have to go, you know, do a job that you hate, whatever that might be? Like, I don't want to shit on any particular type of job because I'm sure that there's a job out there that is the dirtiest job, that there are some people who enjoy it. But like, you know, if I was forced to do something that I hate every day, is my escape going to be pop a pill so that I can just kind of zombie my way through it until the end and then go watch Rollerball? And And usually these types of movies are cast from the perspective of the lowest class, you know, things like if you think of like modern examples, like Ready Player One or you know, The Island, or you know, where it's just people that are on the bottom of the list. Those are the ones that we're usually seeing these worlds from. So it is kind of an interesting take to have the entire movie presented us by somebody who's living in the like the most luxurious lifestyle possible, while still having a sense of freedom or ignorance, I guess, to the way the world works, right? Because he loves rollerball. It's like his whole life. So his job is the dream job, and he's the best at it. So he has no complaints other than the fact that they took his wife away. And
But how
it's a
about-
pretty
how
big
about the
complaint,
fact-
I'll say that much. But
How about the fact they have to listen to the full corporate hymn every single time?
But they have an
Or whole
anthem.
song.
So do we.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah. We listen to that thing fully, like at least twice, at the beginning and towards the
Well,
end.
they're different. There's the corporate anthem, which is I guess like an anthem that you would sing like the "Oh Canada" or whatever. And then there's the corporate hymn, which is more like a religious hymn.
Yes.
And which is so wild because you're like, oh, so the corporations are like nations, but also they are like your church as well. Like you believe in the corporation
Or
the same way you
cult.
do the God. Or cults. Yeah. I mean, arguably most religions are cults, but it depends on. So I want to say that, like, you know, we get like 12 minutes into this movie and it's just a full rollerball game, right? And the announcer, if you're paying attention, is just sort of yelling rules at us.
Yeah.
Like at one point, he's like, he's got the rollerball and he's got to keep it in plain view at all times, or that's a penalty. And then he's like just trying to give us information. But at like 12 minutes go by and I'm still like, they got to put it in the hoop, I guess, is the main thing. But anything else is okay until you start to see the real violence come into play, where you know, somebody punches a guy right in the nose and breaks his nose, and a guy gets run over by the bike, and then the bike gets taken off, and it's like, that's going to be a 3-minute penalty for Samsonite on the Kawasaki motorcycle. He crushed that guy's skull. And then they've got their little like health bars, I guess, on the side, like where it
That's
tells
what I
you
was wondering.
how many
It's like
people are on the track at the same
a
time.
little health bar. They tick down as you get hit, and when you're taken out, it goes away and it turns to a red dot, which looks amazing in that last battle when you realize that it's, you know,
It's a
he's
2v1.
the one. He's Neo. I want to interject here with a couple of fun facts. Do you guys like fun facts?
I do.
As
They're
long as
so
they're fun. Yeah.
They're super fun. Norman Jewison used real life athletes to choreograph the intense action sequences, enhancing the realism. So he was probably using football and basketball players. And James Caan performed many of his own stunts. And
I noticed that. I was like, this is him. There's a few like wide shots where I'm like, I think that's James Caan, because like it usually you can tell when it's a stunt guy, you know, it's somebody in like a overly big wig or something.
Yeah.
You could tell that he probably got into this, which again, to your point earlier, Michael, like why was he sleepwalking his way through a lot of these performances? Because it seems like there are moments where he was really into it, and then there's others that it's like,
maybe he was like super into the fun stuff, and then
the rollerball
bored him.
Yeah.
Maybe they had told him like just perform this way. Oh God! All right.
They literally tranquilized him before each take. Like
maybe that's the character. Maybe
Too
he's
alive.
just he makes some offhanded comment. Well, let's talk about the drugs a little bit. Okay, let's get this out of the way. There's a drug in this movie that sedates you and also gives you some euphoria. I think it's like some sort of opioid, like ecstasy combination. He's very familiar with it, but I'm wondering if, since he's been in this world for so long and he's sort of a superhero and able to do all these amazing feats, he's developed a bit of a tolerance to it, but it still makes him kind of dopey, you know?
I did notice like I think he refused it once or twice, but we do see him take it more at the beginning versus the like second half of the film. He doesn't take any.
Yeah.
So I think the longer this film went, I think what we're supposed to understand is he's waking up from the drug stupor.
Yeah, it's like Equilibrium, where it's like once you get through that the withdrawals, or it doesn't even seem like there is like a big sort of penalty for taking it. You know, there aren't huge repercussions, but you also see in that first sequence in the locker room that Mr. Bartholomew, he understands that moon pie is going to be the next big thing or whatever, right? He's like, moon pie, you're coming up, and he gives him a pill, which to me meant like, oh, moon pie probably doesn't get these as often, but he knows what it is.
Thinking that too. It's like, is this a status thing? Because it seems like the elite take them. It's kind of like an after dinner kind of a thing. And then during that party, the party sequence is so fucking weird. There's so much going on.
All right, let's not go there yet, because that's going to be a huge.
That's going to be a whole thing.
Yeah.
But in this beginning, you're right. You see the corporate people talking about it. They're discussing the decline in popularity of Rollerball, of Jonathan, sorry, and they want to replace him. And this is where we see that control over everything that they just need to have. And
I wrote also Rollerball executives are clearly all old evil white men. It's like, yeah. But then they're doing a really good job of being sort of like sleazy, like honey-tongued weirdos, right? Where he's like giving like the perfect speech to get their juices flowing, and like, Rollerball is the best thing. Executives in their towers, you dream of being them, but they dream of being you. How about that? You're like, okay, yeah, this guy's doing a good job of making these people love being gladiators.
And that's what it is. It's the gladiator arena for
it is
2018.
It is, yeah.
It's literally a death sport, and they're celebrated for their victories.
And the violence is the spectacle, and each match has less rules and more violence through these 3 matches that we see.
I think that's because they're trying to, like you said, the popularity of Rollerball is going down. So like, how do we make it even more popular? Let's get rid of some of the rules. Maybe if a couple people's heads get run over like melons, like that'll be, if we encourage them to be more violent.
They have substitutions. They can sub out people who get just injured. I don't think anybody really dies in that first match, but you can sub people out. And there's a hardline time limit. When it's over, it's over. It doesn't go till everybody's literally deceased.
There's periods like hockey. It's like,
But did you notice that early in the movie when they were talking about not that early, but when they're talking about Jonathan E's career, they gave a bunch of stats, and one of them is 9 deaths.
Yeah.
Like 9 deaths in 10 years. And then this season, holy crap, they wiped out basically 2 entire teams.
Yeah. And I think there's like during that interview, when he's having the interview where he's got his like new wife there or whatever, and like the guy is behind the screen, he's like, I'm a bit of a stat pervert. Let me just throw some stats at you for a moment. And
also at that party, I don't know if it's the party, but it's the first time. Anyway, there's a point where they're just watching a highlights reel of Jonathan on the TV that I thought was really weird. Where he's supposed to, it's right after he's supposed to give his speech about retiring, because it's supposed to be in that highlight video. I thought it was really strange that they're all huddled around a TV at a dinner party.
Well, because they want to watch him clubbing people to death with his spiky glove or whatever.
I just had an idea popped up about something you said, Stephen. Okay, so what if those pills mixed with the music?
Oh,
okay.
So it's like a combination where you take the drug and the music,
and the music, like helps it within your head.
It creates sort of an even more tranquil effect where
bingo.
Yeah,
I just thought of that. So,
I mean, this is the thing is like I feel like this movie has all these weird, interesting things going on that have been further explored in other movies that are more interesting in terms of those specific things, right? Like I brought up Equilibrium briefly, but I don't know if you guys have ever seen that movie.
I have, yeah.
But the whole concept behind that is people take drugs every single day to suppress emotions, and they just basically go through life as drones, and they're able to complete tasks and do things for the betterment of society, specifically because they feel absolutely nothing. Like they're just essentially ignorant to any kind of mental or emotional anguish. So like your wife will be taken away and burned in an oven in front of your face, and you'll be able to like deal with that without any kind of repercussion because you just take the drugs.
That concept. Sorry.
I mean, Equilibrium is a real on the nose movie, but it is also a fun action movie where they invented like an entire fight style called Gunn Kata, which is like
I thought it was, yes, you're right.
it's like a type of martial arts.
Oh, that's what Gunn Kata is from, because there's
Yeah.
Wanted as well, where they can.
Wanted is just a big pile of shit.
I know, that's a big pile of shit. That concept also reminds me of the TV show Severance on Apple, where basically what happens is like you go to your job, and when you go into the elevator and you go up, it clicks into, you become like a person inside your head that does, like, they're two different people. So when you go work your job, you don't remember the whole day of work. So when you leave for the day, you're like, that other person went and did the job, but it's you. There's no pill involved, but there is like you have to get something installed in your brain that.
Well, in Equilibrium, it's not a pill either. You're given like a little, like, it's like a case, like, you know, those like Monday to Friday pill cases, or whatever. You're given one of those, but they're like injections, and you just have to like every morning like inject yourself in the neck and go to work. But yeah, it's good. It's like, again, it's very on the nose, and it's one of those movies that probably doesn't hold up as well as it did when it first came out. But anyway,
I have a question for you guys. What's the name of this movie?
Equilibrium. No, wait. Rollerball. No.
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
Another one of these movies where it's like Barbarella, you know, or Flash Gordon, where they're going to say the thing a bunch of times, but they do say it for the first time at 10 minutes. That's the
wow.
That's the segment.
10 minutes. Yeah. Considering they're in a rollerball competition, for the first 12 minutes, it took them 10 to get into that.
They mention it when they show the like corporate guys for the first time. They're like, rollerball is a great sport, but it's diminishing in popularity.
Yeah, around the world, Jonathan the sport that exists. Maybe we shouldn't have got rid of like every other sport. Maybe we should have kept a couple of the other ones around.
They kind of screwed themselves over by just going all in on rollerball.
I want to ask you,
bring in Power Slap, guys.
Yeah, that's what they need in the rollerball verse. They needed a Dana White to mix things up. So, you know, and we made the gladiatorial sort of comparison, which is a very, you know, clear allegory or metaphor, I guess, that's going on here. But what about this motherfucker's hat? He's got this one hat that's like a flat brim, flap top hat, but he's got two of them. One's brown and one's white. And it seems like whenever he's in uniform for work, he wears that sort of like white, like off-white eggshell jumpsuit with the two little orange clasps. I tried to figure out what the significance of orange was for this movie. The only thing that I could find was that the most popular baseball team of Houston of that era, their entire uniform was orange. So I'm like, is this what they're going? Is that what's going on? Maybe, who knows? But he's got this hat that he takes around with him, and he keeps hucking it into the crowd. He leaves it behind when Moon Pie dies. He leaves it in rooms. He leaves it all over the fucking place, but it keeps coming back to him. And I'm like, does he have a room full of hats, or is this a cursed hat that follows him around like the movie The Mask? Every time he tries to get rid of it,
cell phones in the future. They have.
He's gonna find my hat app.
Yeah,
I mean, they have every luxury.
That's true. Yeah.
So I imagine if, you know, the hat disappears, they'll just magically have some low level.
Right, that's true. That's someone's job. Yeah.
Run or fly or whatever, a new hat to him. You know, between scenes.
There's some guy.
Your government mandated wife's job is to go find your hat.
No, he's sleeping, and then like a goes off, and he's like, "Oh God!" And he wakes up, and it's like the hat tracker, and he's like, he fucking threw his hat again. And he's got to go get it and deliver it without being spotted or like. So I guess what you're saying is that Jonathan E. thinks he just throws that hat around and it always comes back. He's like, I can't believe this self-retrieving hat. Amazing. Technology is amazing. But really, it's a peon, like you said, going and getting his hat and placing it back in his home.
Is this true? Is Paul Heyman in the remake?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
Immediately look this up.
Hey,
I
man,
saw you like Paul Heyman, for those of you that don't know, is a manager from wrestling, a prolific manager.
Well, then probably
the 80s.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
He could make a cameo. He would have been like in WWE at the time, just starting in WWE. This is 2002. It's very much 1 year after WWE buys WCW and ECW. Vince McMahon probably saw Rollerball in 1975 and was like, "That's what I'm going to do.
I'm gonna make Rollerball."
No, I'm gonna make WWF or WWE the
And he also
fucking
make
only
like
sport."
the extreme football company
Yeah.
or whatever. I can't remember what it's called. X
the
Ball or
XFL.
something.
XFL,
Right.
which
Oh my
flopped
God,
in
Shane McMahon's
1998. Shane McMahon's in it too. Okay, we have to fucking.
And,
do
yeah,
this.
Paul Heyman's in it, but yeah, Shane McMahon is in it, and he's billed as American Media Mogul.
Oh, and Paul Heyman's on commentary for the Rollerball parts. It looks like based on
English sports announcer.
That's incredible.
Well, sorry, I don't
Oh
want
my
to.
God, Scotty too hotty. Sorry.
If you guys have more to add, that's fine. I just want to make sure we don't skip over the weird meeting that he has.
Yes, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's where we're at. The confront about his retirement meeting, right?
Yeah. Which
he
is
resists the idea, clinging to his identity as a player.
Yeah, so they go to this this pleasure center or whatever, and everybody's eyeballing them because they're famous athletes, and I guess everybody on planet Earth watches Rollerball. Like even later in the movie when he goes through the laboratory, like the one female scientist is like, "Oh my!" Like when she sees him, she's like, "That's a rollerball, man! I love rollerball." But he has a meeting with Mr. Bartholomew, and he goes into like his chamber of silence or something. It's like a weird room that's a dais that's surrounded by dangling sharp pieces of metal and glass or whatever. And as he goes in, he says, "Oh yes, Jonathan, join me in silence for a moment." And he's like grabbing his eyes and stuff. I'm like, this guy's so rattled on his drugs that he probably just takes them over and over again to like constantly be that sense of euphoric peace, but it's no longer working, so he has to make a weird dangly wind chime room to sit inside to have any kind of moment of silence or peace. But there's like a funny bit where he's like, "Please join me in silence," and then as he walks through, his shoulders are too wide because he's just like a big athlete, and he like bumps into them and they start to like rattle and jingle, and he grabs them and he cuts himself. And I'm like, okay, so this is clearly, it's like, what is it? It's like he's too big to get into this circle of silence. He cuts himself on the dangling stuff that's representative of the corporate greed that exists. And it's like, he's the problem. This is what he's fighting against. And it's going to cut him if he goes against it, even if it's by accident, because he just like bumped into it or whatever. And like, it is interesting, but it is very sort of like art school, like, and then he'll walk into it, it'll cut him. And like the whole time he's sucking on his finger. But the entire scene is predicated around more exposition for the world, that they give us enough to explain it, but they don't give us the stuff that we need. It's giving us more world building in terms of like, this is how the world works, which, you can make those assumptions in other ways. You can show a guy retrieving his hat or something, or a guy polishing a rollerball arena and going home to his one room apartment. But it's trying to be a little artsy. I don't know how you guys felt about this scene. It's like,
well, okay, so
it's weird for the sake of being weird.
This scene is actually kind of how I felt about the whole movie.
Mhm.
I know it's based on a book. I get it. But when I didn't know that. So when I watched it, I felt like somebody had a really, really good idea, a really good point, and had this great dramatic story that they wanted to tell, a message to get out there to help all of us, right? Yeah. And they were probably going to make it artsy. And if I were making this film and it wasn't Rollerball, I would, instead of having, like a sports champion, maybe some executive start, questioning things, and then whatever, and then the whole thing falls apart somehow. But that movie probably wouldn't sell.
Yeah.
So some actual executive went to this writer and said, "Hey, that's a great idea, but like, that ain't gonna sell. Like, you gotta have some sports in there."
He's smoking a cigar, right?
Yeah, right. You gotta have some hard hitting action, you know. And then oh man, why am I channeling Vince McMahon? And
Because he
then
was in Rollerball. Yeah.
so they're
Make
like,
him
okay,
nuke.
so it's like it felt like it's two movies. The Rollerball part is one movie, and then everything in between has like a lot of artsy, a lot of but again, all the interesting concept stuff, the messaging and the drama, the dramatic stuff, that's all in between. And I feel like if you removed the Rollerball part completely
or have
kind
it
of
as like
create-
have
Like
it
it's
as like
on screens.
like yeah, it's like the characters are dealing with the world of Rollerball, but they're not actually the Rollerball players.
right. I'm just saying if this followed an executive instead, I felt like they would have had more opportunities, time, and ways dramatically and symbolically to show us the world they're in and make this movie better. But because I felt like the Rollerball is what sold this movie.
Yeah.
And then you walk in, you're like, what the hell am I watching?
I'd like to. That's a really good point, because I would like to point out. I just checked this. I saw this earlier, but I checked the exact dates. This movie and Jaws came out 5 days apart. Jaws came out 5 days before this, which means
surprising
two
that this movie
films-
did so well, considering that it was
Jaws was
the
in
same
theater.
week as Jaws. Yeah.
But that means that these movies were probably made at the same time over the previous couple of years. So somebody was probably like, let's do it like what modern day Black Mirror episodes are like. Don't show any of the fucking Rollerball. Just have like what it means for everybody in the universe.
Well, I mean, I
don't
think
know
that's
what the book's
why
about.
the sequel to this movie did much better. You know, Moneyball. Have you seen Moneyball? Basically, I mean, but that's a joke. But obviously, but like to your point, Michael, like Moneyball is an interesting movie that deals with the backgrounds of sports, and I think you're right. Like, I think a Rollerball movie that deals with like the people dealing with Rollerball would be more interesting than the guy who's like, I'm the best Rollerball player and my wife got stolen away, because they are trying to do the artsy, interesting, heady ideas, but a pro athlete is not the most interesting character to be in that setting.
Unless it's a comedy, unless it's like Will Ferrell playing a basketball player
or whatever,
basically anytime Will Ferrell plays a sports actor, a sports character as an actor, it's more interesting than James Caan be like, hey, I'm from South Carolina. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry.
I was gonna say, as in response to in the Jaws thing, I was thinking a lot about like how this sort of feels like an old guard director, or at least sort of a mid guard director, being in his stylistic comfort zone in terms of like cinematography and music and editing and all of that kind of stuff. And then you've got something like Jaws that is the new blood of that era coming in and sort of changing up everything about how you understand cinema. And it's like, I like, as I was watching this movie, I'm like, I wonder what this movie would be like if someone like Spielberg, like a young director of that era, had the material, and like, and how different would it be? And like, and
be more interesting.
It probably would. Yeah.
Okay, this is the best way I can describe what I'm feeling with this movie. It's like right now, if you asked like Wes Anderson to make the Minecraft movie.
Oh, everything would be symmetrical. It'd be even more square.
So you have a guy who's like, wait, you want me to do a video game movie? But I have this great idea about about I don't know, like unions and people, being like, how they're busting unions and stuff. Well, just make it work. And put the video game actors on strike. Just make it work, damn it.
Jack Black already signed on.
But now you have like this weird
Minecraft movie as a secret union buster, like
yeah. And then you have all these weird like actual Wes Anderson like stuff in between all the Minecraft stuff that's like beautiful. Right. And like the message is fantastic. It's a support of unions and support of the working class. And then you have Minecraft and you have like Jack Black, I am Steve.
Yeah.
That's what this feels like to me.
Yeah.
It's two movies. And if you had doubled down on one or the other, so if you had just made this a sports movie, I don't know what the full story would be, but focus more on the sport, or you went the other way, like what I thought this felt like, with the art, the more dramatic, artsy, symbolic,
Mm.
important message movie. Just like that would have, either movie would have been better on its
Well,
own
Yeah.
than what
I'll
we
tell you,
got.
the sports movie is the same movie without the anti-corporate rhetoric just cut out. A half hour of this movie just lobbed off.
I think, but
And
you've
it's
got a less interesting
it's
movie there.
slap shot. It's a less interesting movie.
Yeah.
But you make this movie 20
It's-
minutes longer and take out the rollerball, and it's an epic. It's a storytelling epic, and you get a better director to do that. You're right. I love the idea that you guys have this is a Frankenstein, probably a lot of executive input, ironically, considering what this movie's about. I think that Jaws may have altered the trajectory of what this
I mean,
movie
I
was
don't think
supposed
it's
to
fair
be.
for us to continue talking about Jaws in the same breath as Rollerball, because Jaws is one of the
You're
greatest movies
Yeah,
ever
it's one of the
made.
greatest movies ever made. So
It goes like Citizen Kane, Jaws, and then Endgame.
I like Jaws better than Citizen Kane, to be
I
honest.
know. That's a joke. That's fun.
Anyway, his forced retirement, we get the revelation that his wife has been taken away from him, and this is where I started to have more interest in the character of Jonathan E., which, it's Jawserball.
nice.
Very good.
Tim, you've done it again.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh man, they took his wife. But it's not revealed until later that his wife was also given to him by the corporation. In my brain, I thought like maybe he met her as like a Rollerball fan, or like before he became Rollerball famous, it was like his sweetheart, and they had the sort of like traditional sense of two people meeting each other and getting married. No, he was gifted her just like he was gifted all of his other wives, and that's the only wife that he truly loved. And every wife after that, he's been either supremely sort of distant from in a prickish way, or straight up abusive to. Like, we see his new wife, or they're wives. They're called wives. So like, I don't know what else to say. And
But they're
it's
like
really
government
disturbing.
mandated wives.
Yeah.
So-
And
But
they're
he falls in love
basically-
with that first one, full stop, to the point that they utilize her later in the movie to
But
like sway
know,
him.
but I
And
think
then
that-
ultimately,
that either shows one of two things. I think that
he's had this
sort-
wife before.
No,
Maybe.
that's not what I was going to say.
I know I wasn't trying to predict what you were saying. That just popped into my head.
I see. I think that it either says that he never experienced any kind of true connection with somebody before, and so that those feelings of love, lust, whatever you want to call them, he never really got to fully experience a romance to its full extent before she was taken away. So nothing will ever live up to that, and that's kind of something that people can relate to, right? Is like the first love of your life doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the only love of your life. Or that he is just that stupid, right? Like he's so dumb that he can't comprehend anything coming out of something that was taken from him. So like he's just looking at it as something that was taken from him. And so everyone that comes after that is like, man, I like my old sneakers better than these new sneakers. And like that's kind of how he treats his wives coming after that.
Of this character, though, we're used to now. I think even then in the 70s, they were used to having this like clear-cut hero, right? But he never really does anything heroic per se. He doesn't even really smash the system ultimately.
No, and he's not portrayed as being smart at any point.
Yeah, he's just kind of coming online, and it kind of subverts our expectations of a main character like this. Maybe James Caan is that good. Maybe we were so caught up on the fact that this guy's an idiot that we just bought into what the director and the writers and the story was trying to tell us about this person. He's so indoctrinated. Like the script, maybe in the script, it was like he's so indoctrinated that he's trying his best to try to reveal something, but he doesn't even know where to start. You kind of see that through him going to like track down information that he almost kind of just like keeps putting off for a while. He finds out that there's like these World Bank libraries, and then he goes and plays the second game, and he's like, I'll deal with that later. And then he goes there.
It's also never really.
He's like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
It's never really fully explained to us like how long this movie is. Like how many weeks is this supposed to be over the course of? You know, like I don't.
Well, they
really...
traveled to Japan in 1975, so that
no, it's
probably took a week.
2018, so they have teleportation.
All right, right. Okay.
If they have, I mean, he flies around in a helicopter, so I assume
that's his car. Yeah.
Can you imagine like every team member has a private helicopter and they all like have to fly into?
You never see him travel any other way. He's always in a helicopter. And then when his old wife shows up, she's like, "We have a jetcopter." I'm like, "What the fuck is a jetcopter? Is like a faster helicopter? What does that mean?"
I guess a drone in our day and age.
It's just like a crazy like Inspector Gadget like helicopter.
But I was thinking about the last game though. I think most of his awakening happens there in a way, especially when he refuses to kill the last guy. Because your expectation is that if you're gonna kill them, you kill them, right?
Well, I think his expectation was that he was gonna die, right? He's like, I'm probably gonna die in this game. And I think the big hoorah, I'm a gladiator moment, and you can't take me out of the arena unless I agree to it, is when he goes to the Tokyo game, right? Where it's like, I'm going to make sure my team is the most prepared for this that I possibly can, and I myself am not dropping out, because they wanted him out before the Tokyo
game,
right?
I'm just saying, like, by that last game, yes, he thought he would die, but also I think everyone, including the audience, everyone's expectation is everyone was going to die.
Right.
And then whoever's, because there's no time limit, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if this thing went off the game.
Yeah.
But like, everyone was going to die except whoever's left, right? And the expectation was he's going to die, except he didn't actually kill the guy, the second last guy.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest moment of total defiance and the most actual emotion I saw in him. Dramatic emotion. Like, I saw happiness and joy when he does all those crazy stunts. Clearly the actor was having fun, but I'm just saying the character had that defiance, and I was like, ooh, that is the most interesting moment for me because of that defiance. And then obviously going and putting the ball in the goal to end the game completely. So
I was like, is he gonna that moment? I was like, is he gonna also throw the ball down and be like, no one wins this game?
No, he walks over. He's like, boop.
No, I know. I saw the movie. I'm just like, I was like thinking, like, is this the gladiator throws down the sword? You know, like, you know, when the emperor is like doing the up or down.
Are you not entertained?
He just throws the sword down and doesn't kill anybody. I thought he would do that with the ball, but no, he's like, Houston for life.
But does make him an ultimate hero, though, which is what they didn't want.
Yeah.
Imagine a soccer game that had no time limit.
It would go forever.
It's still happening today.
I almost half expected one of the executives to stand up with a gun and shoot him, and he'll blow into like a million pieces.
One of those.
That's the thing, right? They could have just killed him, but they did say in one scene, I don't want anything dramatic, nothing big, just gets taken out of the game,
What we'll do is we'll remove all rules and the time limit, which basically is saying a game to the death without saying a game to the death.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Or at least until like horrible injury that you can't.
There's basically two survivors of that game, right?
Yeah.
So the hero and the one he wouldn't kill after killing a bunch of other guys.
It's also crazy that like the entire New York audience and the New York team is chanting like, "You're gonna die," like as they're coming in, like, "We're gonna fucking kill you."
That was insane.
And it wasn't just hubris. It was like, no, they're actually gonna try and kill you.
I'd like to quickly channel my brief history again for 1 second. This is one of those movies that, like, when I was a kid, I was aware of it and thought it was just like gore all the way through. But when you grow up, you realize that in the 70s, no matter how much gore they try to put into a movie, it's never that brutal. Really, there's one thing that should have been much more intense, and there's in the first Rollerball game, a guy I think it's when he gets his head run over or smashed into the floor. When he rolls over, he's just got some fake blood on his face. Yep. So Michael, I've got this thing where, and Steve kind of had it too when we were kids, like horror movies put us in this like mind prison where we couldn't like we couldn't like watch them because we were more afraid of the idea of the movie. And then when you grow up and you watch like Friday the 13th, it's just goofy. It's just goofy.
I know that you're right, because like I didn't watch The Exorcist until I was in my 20s. Like that was my first watching of it, and I remember sitting there and going, "That's it."
That's it.
That's the one that allowed me to get over the threshold. I watched it at a birthday party when I was in the 7th grade, and I watched The Exorcist, and then after that, it was like a cascade of like I can watch anything now. I think.
But the reality is, if you think about the time period it came out, watching a little girl stab herself in the crotch multiple times with a cross, and all the other religious, blasphemous stuff. In a more religious time, is it a more religious time? Because right now we have a lot of crazies. Anyways,
1999 was the peak.
But you get what I mean. Like back then, people would be like, right? Like, but now people are just like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen that 60 billion times worse," right? Which and that commentary on desensitization, but I won't get into that. But the whole point is, I watched it in my 20s. I was like, "Oh," but I get it. I get it. Back in the day. Something like Rollerball, people would be like, "Oh my god!" Like, oh, and now we're just like, "Oh, that's fake blood."
I think Death Race also had a very impactful moment, much like this, where people were like, "What am I watching? Oh my goodness!"
There was also like a revolution, or an evolution, I guess, of special effects around this time period, where they became exponentially better within a short period of time because people were getting wilder with it, but also the rating system was wild back then too, where it's like if you get too gruesome with something, you immediately have a rating that is going to be unseeable by the vast majority of moviegoers, so that they had to like taper things a little bit too, right? This movie in no way is gruesome. Like there's a couple of moments where you're like, "Ooh, man, that would hurt if that was me," but you're not like, "Oh my god, disgusting."
There was one part in the final battle where they pull a guy off a fence that looked really like,
you're like, that guy, actual guy, maybe got hurt a little bit.
But I mean, there's a lot of like somebody cruising and then
I think the most effective, like
off a trampoline kind of
like those ones
scene.
didn't really. I was like, that's just a guy having fun in the air. But like the one that got me a little bit was when the guy falls over and the rollerball, because we'd already made a big deal about how fast the rollerball comes in
and how heavy it is,
and it just like smokes him in the head. And I was like, that was pretty. I can see like a what's his name? The guy who directed Starship Troopers.
Verhoeven, right?
A Paul Verhoeven version of that rollerball hitting that guy and his head just like fully exploding.
You would see everything rip.
Yeah.
Close up.
It would be like a torrent of blood in all directions.
And then the head rolls.
You know what would be a good remake would be a Paul Verhoeven's Rollerball. I think that he would make a very good rollerball.
Look, I've been sitting here thinking this whole time that I'm surprised there was no like 1996 remake of this movie with just like the best, worst practical effects you could imagine. Probably directed by a Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah. With even more casual racism and boobs and
you mean like the Tokyo players who with the glasses for no apparent reason?
They all have glasses. It's because they can't see because their eyes are too small. Michael, let you know.
Who wears glasses into Rollerball?
They're sport. I assume they're
Japanese
sports glasses. People. They're made of bulletproof glass or something.
Oh my god, those look like either serial killer glasses or like nerd glasses. So like.
Yeah. Also, Moon Pie kept like every time he talked about the Japanese team, he's like, "They're just little guys. They're tiny. They're little boys.
And they're literally the same height as everybody
I noticed. I was like, they're pretty darn tall."
Yeah. Also, he's just very tall. Like he was just everybody is short compared to Moon Pie.
Although, just want to say, I did walk on the set one time and someone said, "Oh, I thought you lied about being 6 feet tall on your resume. You're actually 6 feet tall." And I was like, "Yes." What?
Hold on. What do you mean?
Well, I'm like, and they're like, "Well, you're I'm like, Asian
of the Asian persuasion."
And then they're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, thank you for the apology.
I
What a
mean,
bizarre racist experience that you had to go through with just the smallest.
I know. I have a mix of civility and just a tiny bit of mocking, just enough to make them a little uncomfortable, so they will think about it. But then,
so
But you
go
seem
home.
like
feel-
the kind of guy that's like, fuck you and fuck off.
I think there was a point in my life I was like that, but I have become a bridge builder in my industry. I'd rather tackle things, no matter how I feel inside. I'd rather tackle things civilly. And I know everyone's like, why do the people who are discriminated against have to always be the ones who are calm? It's because the other side is not calm,
Right.
and the contrast is enough to get us heard. And also, no one's going to listen to you if you're making fun of them and yelling at them. Because I certainly don't listen to the other side, because they're ridiculous in the things they say to me. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's
racist
a
people
good.
want to rise. A lot of
This movie is
not
also
even
sort of like a-
bullies want to rise.
It's like a good sort of like, because like, I mean, in terms of like Asian representation of movies, it's like even now it's still like kind of piss poor, right? Like it's getting better like in the last few years, but like the fact that this movie came out in the 70s and it's still like
good represent, like the amount of not white people that there were actually shocked me. I mean,
like the reporters and stuff, like and everybody around. Yeah,
I mean, I get it. It's Team Tokyo, right? And so
and they weren't doing sort of a caricaturization.
Well, they did have mystical karate. They did have a mystical karate.
No, they had roller karate.
In the crowd was doing this, which I was a little bit like, come on.
I expected it from a movie back then, but dude, they brought in an Asian man. Well, I don't know if he's Japanese or not, but the actor, had no accent. And in that, the moment they were trying to coach, like they brought in a specialist, and he's Asian, and and like I said, I was very impressed with the
amount. Could have easily been offensive, like he could have been like a real.
And there were also quite a few black characters too. So like I was like, wow, okay, this looks. I mean, yes, there's tons of white people, but at least it looks closer to now than a lot of other movies from back then, and
that's true.
That was great. Just yes, the casual racism, and I mean, Moon Pie is supposed to be an asshole anyway, so like I'm not the fact that he's such a prick, and I really wanted his ass to get whooped by the little Asians, as he called them, was I was like, and then when his ass was whooped, I'm like,
he didn't just get his ass whooped, he got his brain destroyed.
I felt a great sense of satisfaction actually.
Right, yeah.
Screw you, Moon Pie.
Yeah. I mean, he underestimated them. They might have been shorter than him, but they fucking destroyed his brain by punching him in the back of the head.
Yep.
That was
that little scene is so fucking.
I think that's the one moment in the movie that I was like, this is really well shot. Because it's it's a slow motion sequence. His helmet gets ripped off. It reminded me of something in a modern movie, like they took their time with it, and they wanted it to be devastating, and it was, but like at the same time, he's been portrayed as such sort of a shitty heel that you're like, I don't care that he got his brain knocked in.
He's like a womanizer, he's like gross.
He's
to
just
women.
an idiot in every way. He's like the sort of stereotypical man that when you think of like a shitty white man, this is the kind of guy that immediately is evoked in your mind.
Although I will say this, the misogyny was greatest when they had I mean, there's a lot of it, but like it wasn't from Moon Pie. I felt like for a moment for me that really kind of shocked me was when Jonathan E threw his current wife down and then took the thing and cut her face open.
So I agree.
I'm sorry. I'm like, whoa, dude, whoa, like,
what are you doing?
That's supposed to be shown as a good thing, and I'm like, no, you do not do that. No. Yes, she's corporate, but like, dude, what the hell?
I think there's a way,
a very non-heroic thing to do.
Yeah, I think there's a way that they could have done that would have been so much more effective, which would be to have his paranoia sort of like crest in a much more poignant and obvious way, because he's so reserved and kind of like doesn't say what he's thinking a lot of the time. That moment just came off as being horribly abusive and bad, right? Like it didn't,
Right, yeah.
it didn't come off as like, oh, he's snapped. It's like, no, this is maybe what he does when he's just mad at his corporate assigned girlfriends or whatever. Like anytime
But it does show you what people thought ish back then, that like that was okay, I guess. It's like when you watch Bill and Ted again and they say, about gay people the F word.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, whoa, I don't remember that, but now I do. Oh wow, that one line didn't age well. I think this is one of those scenes that definitely did not age well and didn't portray, and seen through a modern lens, does portray him poorly.
Yeah.
But I can see how in 1975 that could be shown to be an outburst of emotion finally from him, and she deserved it. She's trying to hold him down. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, what you need is for her to be a lot more sinister and evil, and like, you see a couple of scenes that are meant to sort of like goad you on as an audience member, being like, oh, she's literally going around the party and like going and fucking other people or whatever at the party.
Yeah,
he's watching it, so he's like, I don't give a shit about her. But like, you have to assume that he's doing the same thing outside of it, right? Like he's
a
rollerball champion,
unless he's staying celibate because he will only f his wife. Ex-wife.
But like that begs the question, like, what if there are scenes where he's got like a diary or something that he's confessing his actual emotions into that's outside of the computer system, and she like comes in and finds it and is reporting back to the Bartholomew. There's stuff you can do to like make that distrust and dishevelment of a relationship more intense. But
still, I mean, at most, it would be just flinging her. At most, for 1975, it's
for sure.
Coming of her face. I'm like, whoa!
Yeah. What I'm trying to do is like justify a moment in the movie by adding stuff and not.
Oh no, you're right. They could have done a lot more, but still, like the extent that he went to, again, seen now is horrific. I mean, it's bad back then. Don't get me wrong, but I get the audience and society back then was different.
Yeah, I think,
but it doesn't make it good.
No.
I was just like, oh no, what?
It's also like so out of place too for the character, where you're like, what the heck's going on? The only good thing about that moment is that I now understand how sharp the spikes of the glove are. I'm like, whoa, those are sharp. That's a sharp glove.
Yeah. Oh my god! So Moon Pie, damn, your brain is mush.
It's mush. You got turned into mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Where are we at? So I guess
first,
party,
so
right?
Jonathan discovers the corporate powers are actively working to remove him from the game. We get that scene where he's going in there. It's revealed to him that he has to basically give his speech about, I'm out. And he's like, no, I'm not out. And then
I'll never be out.
And then we get that thing where he gives the girlfriend a pill, and she's like, "Oh, I feel great. What is this?" And he's like, "Well, it's a euphoric pill. You'll be fine."
Which this moment here made me realize, like, okay, so not everybody has these. Like, this is a special thing that's given to you in terms of privilege, which is
this goes back to what we were saying about what do the people lower on the ladder do in their day to day, because she seems like she's a fish out of water being brought into this whole.
It's her first
experience. Yeah,
and so
he's like, I hate you immediately.
Moon Pie getting that pill in the locker room is like, Moon Pie has probably had one of these before, like I said, but like
from one of his friends.
He probably gets them very rarely, and it's like a privilege for him to have one. So she's never had it before, and she's like, holy fuck, this is crazy. I feel like I just want to bang everybody in this room right now, and I'm going to. And then he's like, oh god, okay, you shouldn't take pills from everybody. But it's gross because like when you first meet her, she puts on a random thing or whatever, right? And she's like, I just found this to wear, is that okay? And then he says that's the house uniform, and then he says, put these on as well, these glasses. And you're like, how many wives has he had since his like one true wife is gone? We see only two, but there's probably been many, right? Like,
Well, he's young for 75, but I perceived him to be probably
I thought you were
35.
saying he is 75 years old. I was like,
No,
what?
no, no.
He's
For
young. He's young looking for
1975.
75.
I think he's about 35. You know,
Right. If he's been at the top of his game for 10 years, yeah, he's probably like
people in the
cusp.
70s looked older. James Caan has a very classic 70s face. Very handsome, but he definitely
Everybody's hairy as fuck.
yep, his arms are out of control.
Yep.
Also, I just want to point out that in an early scene when they're having dinner, they're all lying down. The fuck? They lie down at the dinner
Every
table.
time somebody is sitting in this movie, they're not sitting. They are reclined. Every chair is a recliner. Like they're like, all right, let's have a conversation. You comfortable? I'm comfortable too.
Here, take this pill. You'll be more comfortable.
Good. Try and drink like this.
We've pretty much gone over it, like the second match too with Team One, which is more brutal.
This is
The match
hurting me in my
showcases
throat.
both
It's
physical and
like this
psychological
entire
warfare.
Conversation about the reclinement of the chair.
I noticed you. I'm like, I can't recline without.
It's a wall behind me. No, Jason's head turned into my head.
Yeah, I'm so chill. I became Steve.
But every time they go into like an expository dialogue moment, people are in these chairs that are like too comfy looking. You know, all the sofas are designed to knock you out. It's like they made the pill and then started redesigning furniture afterwards. You know, like we gotta design furniture that's more conducive to these pills we've made. Even the meeting in the knife room, like the dangling knife room, when they're in those chairs, they're like too far back. And I'm like, they look too comfortable for the conversation they're having right now. I don't like this.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of went over the talk with Cletus and the fireplace and the new wife, and he's not really mean to her, but he's like,
yeah,
he's just not. He's like cold, you know. He's like, hey, how's it going? You're my wife, and she's like, well, what do you want me to do? And he's like, just make me and Cletus some food, and we're gonna go wrestle in the speed bag room or whatever.
We're at the.
They were banging.
Cletus and I think so. I think they at least like probably, you know, gave each other a little fun in the shower afterwards or whatever.
Yep.
For the sake of the fact that it's already 9:45, we're at the party now.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, welcome to Hey, Did You See This One? You can go back and tell everybody at the United Federation podcast why this goes on for so long, because
I love it.
There's lots to cover. But the weird party, okay.
We haven't talked about that. Let's skip over everything. I do want to say that my joke for him going to the library, I was like, oh, books are banned. Surprise. He was probably looking up information on trans surgeries.
Nice.
I also wrote, they put these libraries everywhere in the world, but where they're at, it's I wish they had some sort of interconnected, you know,
some sort of web of information.
Interconnected web of information.
Yeah,
interconnected web of servers and computers.
Burning factory in New Mexico. Who is this?
I mean, they were right about that, though. Books are getting banned, and
yeah, that was my trans surgery joke. Is that
no, exactly? I'm just
they're
saying,
trying to like
it's turning people out their way. We have no books except the Bible, so
yeah.
Well, whatever is left on the internet once all the books are burned. It's like the Library of Alexandria is slowly being burnt, and then whatever is on the internet will stay there. You know, but
I've been to a country that I will not name where the internet is only what they allow you to see. So I know exactly what a world where even internet information is controlled looks like.
China.
Please don't joke.
There's only a few countries that's it's well known. There's another one.
Yes.
Let's name all of them.
Let's not.
Yeah.
On the internet.
Stat freaks are indeed perverse. Is what the man says in this movie. But yeah, okay, let's talk about the party, because the party is the weirdest part of the movie, but it's also because, you know, when I put together the idea for this month, the idea was like things that are fucking weird and like the ideas are kind of out there and kooky and crazy. And we've gone through 2 already this month that are weird and kooky and crazy. And this is
Objectively
probably
weird, kooky and
this is
crazy.
the weirdest part of the movie that slots in the most.
Let me say this: the first Flash Gordon and Barbarella are like, if you're on drugs and you watch them, you're going to trip out. If I did drugs and watched this movie, it would make me sad and have a bad trip, I think, because of how like.
Okay, but that wasn't
real-
what we were going for.
I know,
for the
I
theme.
know. But this is like the bad trip of the month. Did you guys notice as they pan across when they first get to the party, they pan across this group of people? Pretty sure they're talking about androids. Pretty sure they're talking about. You hear one conversation.
They were saying they thought the players were all androids.
Yeah, they were saying the players were robots.
And I wonder if that was how they're trying to in their heads rationalize watching them kill each other. It's like, oh, they're just a bunch of robots. Who cares? They're not actually dying, right?
I took it literally.
This was also, I think, like a good.
Because it's a sci-fi.
We talked about it earlier, but it's like a good mix of people where it's like they're not trying to like do the status quo, but they're showing that like the corporations are run by the world. So they tried to have sort of a decent mixture of individuals, human beings, representative of like what the world leaders might look like. Right. And I think that was it was very deliberate, obviously, but I think it was supposed to be the idea that like the most important people in the world are at this party. So you've got to have like a little bit of representation of everybody. Mm-hmm. And it made me be like, oh man, these are the corporations, right? Like this is, Tokyo, Houston, New York, Indianapolis, Chicago, like all the things that have been mentioned in the movie so far, plus whatever else exists out there, right? Like, and it made me, I had that sort of like that Star Wars cantina moment where you're like, I wonder what this person provides the world, and I wonder what this person provides the world, because we know Chicago provides food and Houston provides energy, but like what are the outputs of the other important corporations? Anyway, like we have had this moment in the past before, Michael, on it, like like the Star Wars cantina moment where you go through and it's like the like aliens everywhere. Yeah. We've talked about it as like, do you have a favorite one? And I was like, can I fandango this into this, even though it's just like humans? like what's going on here? What do these people represent?
I think to that point, like I want to know what they're doing in like Utah, in the highly religious states. I assume religious is gone in this. Well, yeah, but are there still like religious cults out there trying to bring it back? If we know anything about what it's like now,
there's probably like towns that are made up of like shipping containers and stuff like piled on top of
like
each
Megaton
other.
City from Fallout 3,
and they're like, Jesus Christ doesn't believe in corporations or something. Like they're probably preaching something.
Like, but I'm Catholic now, I guess. I don't believe in corporations.
You need a spin-off where you have rebels.
Yeah.
And John joins the rebels.
Right? Yeah. I mean, and finds his wife.
That's a better.
He has to go find his wife from the mountain that she lives on top of, and with her one son and her, her husband's lover is there. This is my husband's lover. We need to get out together. She also doesn't like him. So anyway, this party is like everybody is, when he comes into the room, like everybody immediately starts touching him, right?
Yeah.
And there's like a moment later in the movie, he's like, I've been touched my whole life, either caressed or plowed into. And like, this is like I think like a pretty good example of, I can't imagine walking into a room and everybody just wanted to like place their fingertips on me for like a second as I walk by. Like it would be so fucking uncomfortable.
I can.
Yeah, Jason, we all know that you're a perverse stat freak or whatever. But it's uncomfortable, and he seems to enjoy it in the sense of the party, but like when he's talking about it later, he clearly doesn't. Like he's just like, I've been sort of like a piece of meat that people want to either like bash in or caress or be with. But like they don't really know who I am. They just know me as the rollerball man. And we're given so many little bits of exposition in this party that I just don't know. I don't know how to like deal with it, because you're still trying to build the building blocks of this world, right? Like the world building of Rollerball. And I'm like, and they're giving you more now. I'm like, I'm still grappling with
Well,
the
when we
shit
get
you
to
told
this-
me before. What the heck is
When we
going
got
on?
to this scene originally, I still wasn't sure if the pills were going to have some like weird trip out sequence. I thought that they were being serious when they were talking about androids and robots, because this is still relatively early in the movie. We've jumped
Michael,
around.
just to be
So we,
clear, Jason wants every single movie we do this month to be Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and
a
this one
little
is-
bit,
and he's
a
upset.
little bit, but
That it
also
didn't
like
have
when
crazy.
they cut to them like dancing with each other, I was like, are they exchanging protein strands, or
No, they just have their fingers up each other's
they
butt.
they're just fucking tripping out on
It
the
is.
quaaludes. They're just taking quaaludes, right?
I mean, I think it's a metaphorical orgy.
Yeah,
I
they wanted
agree
to
with
have
that.
like a Caligula style scene going
Yeah.
on, but they obviously couldn't do that.
But this is a world that is driven by violence, which we see during
Yeah.
this party.
But you also like
No.
there are moments where they're kind of like in a heap, right? Like the people are lying on top of each other, and like it's not man and man only, like sometimes, or man and woman only. Like sometimes there'll be a man leaning his head on like another man's butt. Like if you look at the sort of the wide shots of this, it has that sort of orgy-esque vibe, and you know they wanted to do something more with the scene, but they're like, we gotta keep it a little straight.
I thought they were gonna do like an equivalency deep fake of him retiring, because he was like, I refuse to say that on camera.
I didn't half expect them to have like a fake him.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but they
Or
don't.
like you would have like, and now he's here to give his retirement speech or something, and then you have a
He's at
live
the party like,
Oh,
Hello,
crap.
I'm retiring.
That would have actually been pretty captivating. They brought a live camera to him at the party, and he refuses in front
That
of
would
the
have been
world.
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm Commander Shepard and I hate Rollerball. Okay. Yeah. Again, there's like so many. This is one of those movies where you're like, there's such an interesting movie that could have been here, and you wish for things to happen, but they don't.
Yeah.
And you know, you're left with what you're left with, I guess. But
This is, during this we see Cletus too. He knows what's going on. We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, like you're like, Cletus knows something. What does he know? Cletus, tell
He
us.
advises that John should just bow out. He's just like,
That's why I'm like, he knows something. He probably has seen other rollerball champions when he was a rollerball champion refuse and then die in the arena, right? Like they did something to like make sure he died or something. But like you never see that. There's not a moment where he's in like the archives of the library going through newspaper clippings being like, rollerball champion, head blown up, rollerball champion, killed in a car accident,
right.
killed in a helijet accident or whatever. It's like,
But we do get a bit of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, even the scene with Cletus at the party, it was so. If that scene was done now, I would imagine like they would find somewhere very private, and it would be hushed and it would be tense. But the way that scene went, it was so weird and interesting to me that they were just so relaxed,
yeah,
and open and bright, and I'm just like, are you having a serious hush hush conversation, or is this just you guys? Yeah, are you guys just having a smoke? Like, what is going on here? But it really, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much a lot of the film. A lot of
I also
stuff
thought
doesn't happen the way it should.
There's
I
no
thought the way that
clandestine
Cletus
energy to like there is no sort of secretiveness to anything in this movie.
Yeah.
There's
I
not
thought the
a
way
single moment in this movie where I'm like, oh, the conversation they're having is important and secretive, because
And someone might just walk in. They don't seem to care about that.
But I thought the way that Cletus was talking about this, he seemed like he was a previous freedom fighter or something. And I thought it was going to lead to, at the very end or close to the end, that Johnny's going to be like, stop all of this, and then do a big speech about how we have to all break out of this, corporate mortal coil that we're all.
I mean, he does essentially do that, and that's the last rollerball game. Like that's his speech. He's not capable of making a speech. He has to.
Well, that's what I've learned through doing this show tonight. Like,
right, I forgot that you're like, I don't know what this is, but yeah.
and thinking about it and talking about it, you know.
Well, one thing we learned from this party is that Bartholomew loves giant crystals for some reason, whatever those are for. I don't know. Maybe that's where the drugs are derived from. He's like, this is pure euphorium, the crystal that you eat every day, John.
I also wrote a weird note in my notes before I knew it was like during this scene where I'm like, drugs seem to make you want to watch Rollerball. These weird pills.
That's what me and Mike were getting at before earlier, where it's like the music, the drugs, and the rollerball. They're
the
all
rollerball of it all
mixed together. Yeah.
And then they're all fucked up on the weird pills, and
Sorry, Mike,
that
I'll
one
do my
guy
bit.
has
I'm
like
not
a
just like that. I didn't mean to. Just
that
came
one
out.
guy has a weird Chekhov's gun moment where they show the gun at the beginning of the party, and then he's just got it. He's just brandishing it through the party.
I love the gun. Love the
and
gun.
then he's like, let's go outside and see what this baby can do. And they're just blowing trees up, which was like, what is this?
I mean, this is the most on the
environmentalist nightmare.
Yeah, this is the metaphor that is the whole movie, right? It's like corporate control. He's trying to control Johnny, and John is saying no. All the while, the corporate entities and their sort of like sexual slaves are out blowing up fucking nature, which is like, we can control nature, and we can destroy nature if it doesn't bow to our whims or whatever. All the while, it's cutting back and forth between his meeting with Bartholomew and them blowing up the trees, which is like, the trees blowing up are supposed to be us worrying for him. I think this is what I think is like, he's a tree and they're blowing them up, and like the corporate entities are easily able to destroy the tree, but he's like, I'm a tree and I'll grow my own roots or whatever. Like, I'll do what I want. And he runs like, I think it's just supposed to be a visual metaphor in terms of why they're blowing the trees up. The characters in the movie, they just wanted to blow some shit up, right? They're like, let's just
that's just what they do.
They're on drugs.
Do you think that
grenade gun.
As far as the special effect goes, do you think that so the explosion on the trees looked pretty dope, but when they pull out, it looked like they used something that didn't only burnt like the inside of the tree, like it didn't. The foliage on the they were pine trees.
Well, what they definitely did was they
I'm just curious about how they didn't just like destroy trees here.
They did destroy trees here. What they probably did was they probably either excavated trees and planted them in that area to film specifically, or they found a property that had those trees already there where they were planning on removing the trees anyway. So they're just like, we'll blow them up. I think it's probably the first one. They probably just replanted trees specifically. Maybe trees that were dying. Who knows? It was 1975. They probably didn't give a shit about wildlife conservation.
They probably had PETA, but there was no Trita.
They're gonna happening us,
Trita Repulsa, my favorite Power Rangers character.
Oh my god!
You'll never destroy my trees, Power Ranger.
And Scorpina.
Yeah, the theme from Back to the Future. Perfect. It's a little hated to see this one inside joke.
But yeah, the explosions looked great. In terms of, did they care about the trees? No, they didn't give a shit.
No.
They wanted to film some trees blowing up.
I
still don't care about trees in modern.
No, burn them all. Let God sort them out. Do you think trees go to heaven? Never mind.
That's what Mickey Mouse says every time they start filming on the Disney lot.
Burn them all. I noticed that the people who play Rollerball sort of have this vibe that's like, even though they're sort of in prison or in the army, and especially Jonathan E., it's like they're indoctrinated to a degree that's like, no, I want to stay. Doesn't matter. I don't. And sometimes you'll watch a crime drama about a person in prison, and they go out of prison and they cannot adjust. They sleep on the floor. They can't adjust to like going to like a fast food restaurant. They freak out. I'm mostly thinking of Breaking Bad. I got a lot of that vibe from Jonathan E., where he's just been in for so long that he wouldn't even be able to sort of comprehend leaving
Well, he's only
So I
got
think
one
that-
thing that he loves, and that's his first wife, and she was taken from him. He
And body
says
slamming
that
bitches on the
you're the
rollerball
only
floor.
person I ever wanted, which like is, you know, a very real and like scary feeling, I think, to have for a lot of people. Like if there's only one person you want to be with and you can't, like that's something that's devastating. And if the only other thing that you have other than that one thing is rollerball, and they're telling you no more rollerball, he's probably like, what am I gonna do, ride horses all the time? I don't even like my horses. I just roll around on my horses waiting for the next rollerball match.
You can helicopter around the world.
But he can't. He's too dumb. He doesn't have the imagination to think of anything beyond his first wife and rollerball.
That is very true.
Yeah.
So should we kind of this is one of those, unfortunately, this happens sometimes on this show where there's so much to talk about with the first two acts, but the third act will be very much a sprint to the finish.
It's just a rollerball game.
Yeah, it's just a full-length rollerball game.
It's like half an hour long. It's crazy how long
all the rollerball games in this are almost the length of time it would take to play rollerball, it seems like. I know on the clock it's like they put up 20 minutes on the clock, and I don't know if that's like just
the first one is like 12 minutes. The second one is also around 12 minutes, and the last one is like almost 20 minutes. So
like a whole act.
That seems like a, you know, if you were to have like timeouts and stuff in a regular game, that seems like you could probably make just a whole rollerball movie and just have like moments where they're like timeout, and they go to the corner and they're like, all right, you need to punch him in his nose and you need to rip that guy's fucking ears off.
But what if there were no
amount of time? Yeah, you're right. That feels like a whole game, because with no time limit and no rules, essentially, they're just all killing each other. Yeah, and that would be a really short game.
Well, the last rollerball game feels like almost like a grindhouse movie.
Well, I mean, okay, there's two other things that I think are important to maybe mention at least, but like we don't really need to discuss them too much unless you guys want to, which is when he goes to meet the liquid computer and the Zoom meeting with like all the executives from around the world or whatever.
So that would have been my next point. So the liquid computer part we kind of touched on a little bit. It's like an AI that it speaks to him. He's just there to like find out information about corporations. But the thing is, like, a corporation is a system of.
He wants to learn specifically about the corporate wars that happened before Rollerball.
How this world became to be.
Yeah.
And it starts melting down as soon as he I was I'm not joking. I was having a conversation with my AI instance, trying to like get information out of it while I'm watching this scene. And I'm going, are we in a simulation? Because what a weird thing to
I think that
in real time.
The idea here is that he goes to the computer who's clearly been losing information on purpose. Like the doctor is like, and then every once in a while you lose the entire 13th century. Like, whoopsies. And he's mad at the computer, but he's also talking about how the computer is unreliable and he has got major beef with the computer because it keeps losing information. But it's obvious that the computer has been told to lose information on purpose. So it's losing probably bits and pieces of like revolutionary information that could support an uprising, and information on the corporate wars have been sealed away. And it's like, negative, I'm not going to give you that information because I've been programmed by the corporate leaders to not let you have that information. And the librarian, I guess, is what he would be called, because it is sort of like a big internet library, he's just like this weird comedic elf that is just there to argue with the computer, but you can tell that he
just lives in that room.
Well, he also is like this motherfucker, like this robot, and he probably can't say anything too crazy, or else he might get like executed or something and get replaced by another kooky librarian like immediately. I don't know. That's how I looked at it. Is that the corporations are boiling out information that they don't want people to have access to, and even this man who has access to almost anything that any corporate executive would have access to can access it. But yeah, they don't go too far into it. I wonder if
access all the porn in human history.
Yeah, he's like, give me, yeah,
And that
look up
weird juicy
Pornhub,
computer.
and it's like ding, 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 or whatever. It's like, that would be funny.
And they only kept one porn star for some reason.
Oh God,
But their swath of work was revolutionary.
it was
That's what
decades
all the-
long. Decades.
Yeah, decades. Is Jenna Jameson. So yes, we also get that's a deep cut, no pun intended. Jonathan is given an ultimatum. Basically, he gets one last, like, you got to retire or else, and then we see them sort of sit around the table, and that's when we get that scene of the world powers sort of being like, the Houston corporate guys like, so it's an agreement, we're going to do dastardly things to this man, but I want you all to agree. And we get affirmative from every screen. And that's kind of when they're like,
This is
I
the
don't want it-
funniest part of the whole movie.
I don't want it to
I don't know how
be
you guys
too
felt.
untoward. I just make sure he has an untimely.
Can I ask you guys
experience.
a personal question?
Absolutely.
Every time affirmative came on screen and it like slightly zoomed in, did you go?
A little bit.
I did it for every single one. I was like,
And
I
even
tried to
hold
make my
one
gas.
guy?
I tried to make my gas.
Oh, the guy who
longer
paused?
each time. Yeah, the guy who paused. I was able to take a
There was
breath.
one pause. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was like, this is so cheesy, and this movie's already kind of cheesy. What the heck, guys?
But it was like a next level of cheesy that you were like not prepared for. You're like, hold on, now this has become a Will Ferrell movie. Like dun dun dun. Like you expect like a musical sting for each one.
I kind of wish it was like affirmative. And
Yeah, me too.
But we do get the final battle in a climactic match. Jonathan fights not just for victory, but for his very existence. The violence reaches a terrifying peak, which is an understatement, because this is a brawl for all to the death. And this is what I was saying earlier. I thought every rollerball battle, I think Death Race is what I thought this movie was, because the Death Race movies, I think there's two of them, like an old one and a remake. That's just it's just that video game Postal where you just hit as many people as possible.
I think the Death Race remake was in response to the Rollerball remake.
Probably.
It succeeded in 1977 or 75, just like Rollerball. So let's make this as well. But I think weirdly enough, the new Death Race is actually more enjoyable than the new Rollerball. And by new, I mean the 20-year-old movie.
The 22-year-old Rollerball with LL Cool J as a young man.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody's playing dirty as fuck. Moon Pie's fucking dead.
It gets dirtier and dirtier as the game goes too. Like they kind of start off with a clean match and then it's just skull bashing and yeah.
We did get that scene earlier where Moon Pie is in like a hyperbolic chamber and the fucking doctor, straight out of a Paul Verhoeven movie, was like, just sign off.
Yeah.
And it's fine. He's like, I refuse to sign that. He's like, no, just sign.
I think this is supposed to be in like the Tokyo in Tokyo. Yeah, it is in Tokyo.
it is in Tokyo, yeah.
Yeah, and the doctor is like, he's very polite, and like when he comes in, he immediately says like, you performed an excellent game in our country and I love it. And he's like so happy, but then he's also like, please sign off on your friend's death. The guy's like, no, hold on.
I almost like got the sense that he was gonna get murdered if Jonathan didn't sign it.
Yeah,
because his desperation was pretty clear.
like he would be in trouble. Yeah,
Because he was like, no, someone has to sign. I was like, that's more emotion than most people in this movie. Wow, are you gonna die?
Yeah, I just took it as like, sign off on this because you're signing off on this allows me to pull the plug.
No, I think Michael's right. I think that like that doctor was terrified for his own.
He was
life.
going to get killed if he
Yeah.
didn't get the signature to pull the plug.
He
Two
asks him,
casualties
like,
happened.
he asks him like 6 times to sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and each time with increasing urgency.
Yeah.
That was like the most urgency I saw in any actor in that film. He's just acting.
Yeah,
Good job. Like really good acting there. Like
the urgency of that doctor was only matched by James Caan's like sort of like philosophical outlook on on euthanasia. where he's like, well, plants feel alive, don't they? If a plant sees the sun, it turns towards the sun. You can still feel alive even if you don't have a brain.
He's a lot smarter than we thought.
Yeah.
Like ethically, like disconnect this guy though. Like brain dead is usually a disconnect.
He
Right?
believes that like an existence of just feeling sunlight on your toes is the same as being alive.
That's fair. That's a fair.
He's thinking about lying in a sunbeam, having a nap is the same as having your brain punched out.
Yeah. So yeah, the final battle happens. Jonathan emerges from the match, bloodied and broken, symbolizing the fight for an individuality fight against the corporate machine, which isn't super obvious. I wrote, this game was designed to weed out free thinkers.
Can I ask another question? This is the one line in the movie that I did not fully at least be able to connect something to. When he goes and talks to Moon Pie before he goes to the last match, he goes into his tube room or whatever, and then he says, what does he say? He says I guess you're like a god now, and then he has a monologue where he says a bunch of sort of platitudical sort of hillbilly nonsense poetry stuff where I'm like, okay, but
some sort of hillbilly elegy.
Yeah, he turned into Jiminy Cricket for a second or something. I'm like, what the fuck? But what did he mean by saying I guess you're like a god now? What does that mean? Because there's been no sort of undertaking in the movie's part to let us understand what these people think about religion. And clearly he believes in the idea of gods, or he wouldn't have brought it up. What do you think he meant by that? I don't really know. Does he think that a god can just exist via pure experience and not thought or something? I don't know.
Could be, but it's also a person could be seen as a deity, right? So
I was going to say because that was essentially his replacement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now that he's essentially he's here and not here, but people will still in a way worship him.
Or 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot out of the grave, but yeah, people will still see him as a statuesque sort of existence.
Yeah, because especially with the way he went out and everything, and then by this point in the movie, I think Jonathan E has awoken or evolved or whatever far enough to realize, partially at least, his status and the way people see him is part of the issue that the corporations have, I would assume.
Right.
And so he would look at Moon Pie and be like, in many ways, you're like me, except now you're kind of gone, but they're still, and so you're not someone they can see, but they're still going to cheer for you or worship you.
Even though you're not here anymore.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. Almost immediately after this, we see, for some reason, he looks into the locker room and it's that fucking hat again. It's on the rack. And I'm like, this hat means something. What does this hat mean? I don't fucking know what the hat means, but it's back.
He's the only one that has a hat, no?
I think he's the only one in the entire movie with
a hat. And that's his individuality.
That's his identity. So he's leaving it on the rack before he goes into the yeah, okay. I think you're right, Mike.
But he rips off his helmet by the end, right? So
imagine he put the hat on.
I wish he did, but no, he took off the helmet. He took off the uniform.
Yeah.
Essentially. And the rest of it's torn up, and then the final defiant
his uniform is ripped off and his armor is underneath. It's his muscles. Yep. Yeah. I mean, again, this movie is not bad. Jason, I know that you didn't like it that much, but the movie is not bad. It's just there's a lot.
No, it's not
much potential.
Yeah. I agree with you, Michael. It's not that I didn't like it. It was an enjoyable film. I was bored by certain parts. I wasn't bored by it as a whole. It was there was too much expository dialogue that made me go this seems like you could like act it out a bit better than just like say the things and then hard cut to a weird parody or a full fucking rollerball match. Through this episode, I've been caught up on the fact that this movie didn't need any rollerball in it to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It would have been 40 minutes shorter, and it probably would have been better.
Yeah, like it could have been a lot more of like I like the idea of following somebody in the corporate world versus like some country bumpkin dummy who is played by an amazing all-timer actor who just had nothing to really work with from the script. I think the script was just kind of jank. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
It's a lot of cartoonish monologues that happen in this movie. But
I think for me, the thing about this film is like, and okay, what frustrates me the most in film generally is when I watch something that you see that with some tweaking, it could have been a masterpiece. Like, there's so much potential and they just missed it. And it's like it's all there.
I don't think they missed it by that much either, because like Steve said, like there's some good stuff here and there's some good messaging. Like we didn't even really touch on the fact that like the athletes are used as cattle and the violence is what the people want. And it's sort of this circle. It's very cyclical in that like these people go out there and kill themselves for the sport and the people want to see blood. But when they see too much blood, they go silent. But then when the victor is victorious, they cheer harder than they've ever cheered before. And then the movie just ends and we don't really get a good resolution. I really wanted that final, when he's about to kill the last guy, I would have even been fine right there if he's like, no, the reason why I'm not going to do this is like X, Y, Z, and we get a final, like the very end of the movie is a speech. Would have been an interesting way to cap it.
I agree with that, but at the same time, I completely disagree, because I think the fact that he says nothing is just as powerful as a speech.
Just as powerful. Yeah.
Like I could imagine a world where he had a speech, but like I can't imagine the character that we've known the whole movie making a speech.
That's the thing, right? Like that's a really good
the
point
other
too.
alternative is that he like bashes that guy's brain in so violently in front of everybody and just like goes too far to the point that they're like, oh, what the like that could have also been insanely powerful, where he's like, the guy's already, like he's already dead, like stop, like that kind of thing. Could have been
movie literally could have stopped if he just took off his helmet, stood up, and just stared at the corporates.
I mean, he kind of did. He like went specifically up to
but we never needed that ball to go in the hoop.
No, I agree with that.
Like if he left it at 0-0 and ended the game,
that's powerful.
Because they said no time limit. There is no time limit. He could have just ended the game himself instead of allowing them to end it, and that's the end. Yeah. It's 0-0, no score, no one wins, no one loses, really.
I wonder like what the thought process was there, because that was my gut reaction too, is like, isn't it more powerful if nobody wins? Because like, that's
it would be
sort of like what the point he's making is
there like a deleted scene or alternate ending?
And the message of the movie, the multiple
there's 4 alternate endings. One is Jason's, where he makes a speech. One is mine, where he beats a guy to death so hard that everybody's horrified of him. One is the one that we saw, and one is Michael's, where he just drops the ball and walks away and says, "Go fuck yourself."
But I think ultimately it's what we saw is what it was less about the story of that we witnessed. It was more about the message of anti-corporate sentiment, anti-use.
That's kind of
people.
The annoying part about this movie. Is there's no real story for us to be.
The irony is that they don't hit you over the head with plot or story. They hit you over the head with the messages of the movie, to the point that you question whether or not that's what they meant. And then you get lost in the sauce. You get a little confused about like what the point of all of this even is. But at the end of the day, it's literally like a 1984 kind of like the corporations are going to rule the world in the future. 1984 was written in 1949, and George Orwell saw that so far out that when this movie comes out of like 30 years later, it's kind of like, okay, but also what else? And there was no interpersonal real stories.
No, I
with
agree.
anybody
There's
besides
not
him and
really
Cleet,
there's the
you
personal
know?
existence between Jonathan E, his trainer Cletus, and
Cletus and a
his
little bit
buddy
Moon
Moon
Pie.
Pie, and then his
Yeah.
relationship with his boss. Like those are that's the only real story that exists.
And the love with his like
His first wife, who
corporate assigned,
is a ghost for the
which is
most of the
weird.
movie, and then
Yeah.
she shows up to be like, "You really should listen to the company," and he's like, "What?"
That's
The
his
fuck?
ultimate like. That's his ultimate like disconnection.
He
moment.
deletes her from his memory. Remember when he
deletes her because-
deletes all the memories of her?
Yeah.
because he's like, you sent me here, or they sent you here to, which is ultimately what I've always wanted. I wanted you. And she's like, yeah, but I want you too. And he's like, no, I see through all that shit. I see the fact that they're using you as leverage to get me to not play or go, or alternatively go into this game where I'm supposed to die. So either way, it's bad. It's bad outcome. And then he just like is like, I don't love you. In fact, I delete you. I delete you from my memory. And then he goes and has his one great moment, but it still results in the ultimate bloodshed. You know, no holds barred contest. The crowd eats it up, and then like I said, it doesn't really have a satisfying resolution. Maybe that's the point, but also at the same time,
it's the movie is hard clipping to closer images of his face because
at what cost?
Yeah, exactly. He sacrificed basically nothing but everything. Like he sacrificed the idea of rollerball as a concept. Like he didn't really do anything. Like he didn't.
I had a note in my notes that I didn't bring up earlier that was like, there's no downside to him leaving. He leaves a hero. You know, he never wanted to like change the world, and I don't think he really did ultimately.
I still never really figured out why they wanted him to leave so hard, except for what I gave you guys earlier, which I think is the reason. Like that's the only reason I can think of as to why they want him to retire, is that they don't want him to become sort of this like martyr figure within
yeah.
And that kind of like on paper as a concept, I like that, but in execution, I was just confused. I was like, but why? Like, why do people love this guy? And also, if they love him so much, then why does an entire city chant that they were going to kill your ass when you show up? Yeah,
maybe they gave them all drugs.
Yeah, it's true. Everybody take your drug
music.
Yeah, that's true. They played. What did they play? Like, did they play Tartakovsky? Is that what you said? Yeah, they played something a little bit more intense and dark. And they're like, this is going to make you hate Johnny E.
They play Raining Blood by Slayer, even though it hasn't been written yet.
Yeah.
So I think we can kind of leave it there and kind of go into our last couple segments here. It's past the hour. We got a couple little things that we got to do to get out of here. Are you still good, Michael? Yep. Donkey's here. I believe that the next thing that we have to cover is the Home Alone of it all.
If you had to pick one, what do you think the Home Alone is?
The Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone?
I really gotta know.
When is the Home Alone of it all?
What is the Home Alone of it all?
Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
I still find it wildly entertaining that we have a Christmas song in every single
episode. And also, that's just as long as my brief synopsis.
But mine's better.
Whatever. It was my first crack. Anyway, the idea of the Home Alone of it all is sort of I break it down like this. It's a theory that I've had for quite some time, like literally since the movie Home Alone came out, where the movie Home Alone has this very pivotal scene where Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint, and you see his torture device that he's turned his house into, that he wants Harry and Merv to go through.
You're confusing Saw with Home Alone.
They're not too different. I think that there should be a Saw movie where Jigsaw pulls his mask off and it's just
Macaulay Culkin being
Macaulay Culkin. And he's playing himself. But it's sort of the idea that, like, you know, when we go into that movie, we're there to see the traps, you know, like over the time we sort of determined that it could be just the third act, or it could just be your favorite part of the movie. Does that make sense to you, Michael?
I think so.
So you're up. Guests are up first.
I think for this segment we should just go first, Jason. I think
you're right. So my Home Alone of it all for this movie is literally the rollerball matches, and it's because it's the title of the movie, and those were the most entertaining for me. I don't think it talking about this is one of those movies where we talked about it and I got more out of it from talking about it than I did watching it. So my Home Alone of it all is the rollerball contests. How about you, Steve?
I think that mine would have to be the moment that he refuses in the office with Bartholomew at the party, like just after the tree explosions and everything. I'm finally sort of understanding the weight of the movie and like what everything means. I've just gone through this whole expository, but also like living within what the elite of this world consider to be their lives, right? Like the fact that they're lying on the floor and being like, we're about to watch a highlight reel and like that kind of stuff. You're like, oh God, these people are just terrible. And he's there experiencing it and he just wants to get away the whole time. I finally understand a little bit more than I have throughout the movie why he does rollerball, but not, he's not doing it for that world because he hates that world. And I now understand why he hates that world. He's doing it for himself. And so when he says like, I'm not going to leave rollerball, I am rollerball or whatever, like, I don't think he says that verbatim, but he wants to do it because it is his identity. He has nothing else. He is rollerball. I understand the movie a little bit more after the moment when the trees blow up and when he leaves the party. I feel like the movie makes more sense for me at that point. So I'm going to go with that as my Home Alone of it all.
My Home Alone of it all okay. I want to describe it as, because I'm going to talk about this with two different characters, but it's the same thing. It's that we may be following Jonathan E., but there are two moments in this film that really solidify for me everything that's happening outside of him. And then we talked about one, which is the doctor.
Right.
Someone lower on the ladder or whatever. And the desperation in not being able to complete whatever the task is that he's asked to do. And what that potentially could mean. Mm-hmm. Then we also have Bartholomew, who's not getting the job done. And there are mentions of it. Like, I think it was at the party.
Yeah, they say he's going to get taken by the crocodile or something like that.
Yeah, it's even he himself. It's like they're going to come after me. Like
that's why he's like fuck in his.
Like, there's this room. Yeah, and sure he stays pretty stoic, but the reality is, even someone that powerful, that far above Jonathan E., if he doesn't do what, I guess, I don't know who's above him, like fully above him, but like, or any of them, but if he doesn't get the job done, he's done. And like when they say that they're going to push him out, the question I have, just like with the doctor, is what does that even mean?
He's going to be polishing rollerballs.
Is he going to be are the doctor and our Bartholomew going to be removed from position and put somewhere else, or are they dead? Yeah. And that really, it doesn't matter that it's not answered. It's the
implications,
the desperation and the implications, and oh man, there's a word I'm looking for, but it doesn't matter. But the stakes seem to be pretty high for them.
They're worried. Yeah, they're more
worried. And I think that for me is my Home Alone of it all, because as small as those moments are, they speak very loudly to what's happening around in the rest of the world. And from two perspectives on opposite ends of the power spectrum.
Right. That's a very intriguing answer, and I want to talk about it for 20 more minutes. But now I'm like, fuck, we should have talked about this earlier. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because like he is worried, and they do talk about at the party, like he's out. He's out. The crocodile's coming for him, and he's worried. But then you also see that he's part of like a council of people, right? So you imagine that they're in some sort of form of equivalency, but is there an entity even higher than that? And like, is that entity like the liquid brain? Like the liquid brain is part of that is in some capacity as well. Like what the heck? Because they tried really hard to make us think about this robot, but then they did nothing with it.
Yep.
I guarantee you the short story is like the liquid brain is probably in charge of everything, right? Like that's probably the end of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go read it.
I need to read it right now. But yeah, I do like the idea that not completing your task for people who have established positions is more frightening to somebody like Jonathan E, who's like, well, my not completing my task is that I die in the rollerball arena, and the alternative is that I have to go live my life on my ranch and just retire there and become forgotten. That's your Home Alone of it all was the best one, Michael. You made me think about it a little bit harder than I had already, and I thought about this already so hard. God damn it! You've done it, man. You've done it.
Hey guys,
what?
You want to play a game?
Yes.
It's time to play Guess the MPAA.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, human beings of Earth, and all the rollerballs around the world. My name is John E. Dangerously, and I'm here to tell you about the new hip cat game that everybody's playing. It's the top game around the world, and everybody's playing, unlike Rollerball, which is number 2 to the MPAA rating game. The rules are simple. I'm going to turn it over to Steve for the rules, and then I'm going to add an addendum.
I just realized that I did not remove Dildano from my name from last week. Whoopsie Dildano, as I say. So, the rules are simple. The MPAA rating is a rating that's given to every film at the end of their job through the MPAA. They usually get a rating PG-13, PG-1, PG-2, PG-3, PG-4. But what we're looking for is the rating certificate number. So a number between 999 and 000. We're looking for a number between 999 and 000.
Now, just to add to that, your worst explanation ever.
I'm sorry. I got distracted by my own Dildano name, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't change it to Stephen Rollerball or something.
So the MPAA certificate rating is, yes, you're right, is a number that's given to every movie. It's a 5-digit number, okay? All you have to do, the two of you, Steve doesn't know what it is either. I'm gonna give you the first 2 digits, which are inconsequential. So this is basically just guess a number between 0 and 999. But there's a new rule, okay? So usually this results in a tie, and then we're going to do if you guys aren't able to guess that number, I'm going to ask you what the gross box office number is for this. And whoever guesses it with Price is Right rules is going to get an additional guess. But let's get through the first part. Just to show, you're right, Steve. Maybe some of these things, especially for first-time guests, you'll go first. The first 2 digits of this 5-digit number are 24, and now all you have to do is guess a number between 000 and 999. That part is correct.
24545.
Lower, Michael.
069.
You're not the first, and you're certainly not going to be the last. Higher.
380.
Michael, it's lower.
269.
Steve, it's higher for your final guess.
305.
Michael, your final guess is lower.
281.
Nope. Okay. So here's where we add on the additional layer for the first time only in episode 253, season 2, episode 3. We're adding on an additional layer. You guys each get one guess for one additional guess at the box office gross that this movie made. Closest to get it without going over, Steve.
$28 million.
Okay. Michael?
20 million.
Steve is closer without going over. It's $30 million gross with a $5 to $6 million budget.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we got a sequel, but not one we should have. Steve, you get one final guess.
At what?
I don't remember what the last guess was, so maybe I should have written that down.
28
But
million. Wait, what? On the MPAA.
MPAA.
Yeah, I guess 281.
Oh, okay.
It was 2. Okay, so it is lower than 281. So 24.
Oh, 263. Oh no.
That's incorrect.
I know what happens when the Mexican hat dance plays. It means I lost.
Yeah. Also, that sound effect. We haven't figured out the sound effects, but that is the new MPAA rating game.
I don't like it. I don't like how many weird. Like now you get an extra guess. What the fuck? For what? I didn't realize.
The MPAA, everyone. The MPAA. Wow.
Wow.
What's the answer?
The answer is 24244.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's all inconsequential. It's all so stupid.
There's probably
Listen,
a better game we can make than
Listen.
the MPAA.
Listen. I added. That's the first time we had that additional thing.
It's
So
true.
that
We
was
talked about it today, and I wasn't really paying attention to what Jason was saying, and I was like, "Yeah, go for it." So
It's also a backdoor way to put in the. Usually, you talk about the gross and the budget in the director portion, but this was. Yeah. Okay. Can I get a Jason, please, for one? Thank you. All right, we're gonna take this fucker home. It's time for our final thoughts.
wait, where is it?
It's time for our final thoughts.
Michael, thank you so much. You've been a great sport. But now it's time for you to give us your final thoughts on this film. And in true Hey, Did You See This One history and tradition, we ask you to also give it a rating, whether it be out of 5, out of 10, out of stars, or just completely nonsensical. The floor is yours to give us your final thought.
Rating is a perfect 5 out of 7. And if you know the reference. And my final thought is that I want another remake, but balls out. Full on remake.
And it's a Lego sequel, and Bartholomew is like having to polish those balls. It's like you've been demoted, Bartholomew.
Because I think they could do better than. I heard the remake is bad.
I actually kind of want to watch it. So if we ever do it on the show, Mike, would you be intrigued in coming back to talk?
I am intrigued in coming back, and I did quickly look up what people said about it while we were talking, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's okay." So I'm like, I want another remake where they actually do it right, but like balls out, violent as heck, but also with amazing messaging and good storytelling.
I agree with all that. I agree with that.
Directed by Eli Roth. Sorry.
Directed by Eli Cock. Oh, jeez.
Thank you, Michael. How about
What was that?
How about you, Steve? What are your final thoughts on Rollerball from the 1975 era?
I think this movie is far more interesting than it deserves to be, and the most interesting things about it are the least explored. I kind of felt it tiresome as watching it, or while watching it, but as I got through it, I started to realize, like, I don't think a lot of the things that I'm most intrigued about are going to be answered. And so I started doing the connections in my own brain and being like, am I reading this movie correctly? Is this movie meant to be homework? I got through the majority of it, and then I went and did a little bit of a deep dive on like analytics of this movie, and was like, okay, I was reading it right, but the movie is doing maybe not the best job of presenting me its points in a way that is poignant enough that I am absolutely certain that the things they're saying are the things they're saying, which is not great. If you're like, I half get what this means, but then you have to go look it up to make sure you're actually getting it. I mean, maybe in 1978 that was the point. Like, it's thought provoking, but maybe you're meant to have a discussion afterwards on the car ride home, leaving the theater. But when I'm watching it with a partner, then we immediately are like, so is this what it meant? I don't know either. And then we don't look it up immediately. It's different now, right? You can just look it up.
Yeah.
So as I've said throughout, it's not a bad movie. Like it isn't. It's kind of a good movie. Like in a lot of ways that a movie should be good. It just fails in so many ways that it shouldn't in order to get its point across. So I like it and I will recommend it. I think it's kind of, I hesitate to say great, but like I think it does a lot of interesting things that are universally relevant and will always be relevant. Like this kind of thought-provoking government versus comfort versus nature versus how you can interact with your individual human being. It's always going to be universal. So it's one of those movies that, even though it's set in the fictional era of 2018, still makes sense. And I liked it. I didn't dislike it. But if I had to give it a rating, I'd give it like half a health bar on the board of health bars of the rollerball board. I'd be like, this is a 2v1 and I don't know if we're gonna win, guys, but we can try. Yeah, that's my Jesus Christ.
That's my review. No, the last thing I wrote was I would imagine he just keeps playing, right? Like he just, next week there's a new match.
Picks
He
up the
just keeps
ball
playing
again and puts more goals in. He's like, no time limit, right? He's got like 18 goals, like ding ding.
He just hits the
Legend
all-time
says
record.
he's still playing that game.
You keep launching these balls and I'll keep scoring them. It's like people
The audience is dead now.
He murders everybody in the audience, trying to prove his point.
Superhuman, so he's just going in circles.
He's been out there for 3 days.
My sentiment is also literally good, not great. Like it's as simple as that. The concept is tight. James Caan is tight. The messages of anti-corporation, anti-violence in sports are tight.
Yep.
But man, they just look at each other knowingly so much in 70s movies. They just,
I think, Jason, you like the discussion, I think, opened your brain a little bit more, right? Like from what you originally thought. Yeah.
You're right. I got a lot more of this from this conversation than I did actually watching it, because like I'm not a stupid person, but I'm watching this just like bored, waiting for something to happen. So my lizard brain is like, yeah, now they're playing rollerball. But what you notice through the 3 rollerball games is they get increasingly more intense and more violent and more like stupid, like.
But that's the point
like,
of the movie, right?
That's one of the central themes, is the stupidity of all of this. I would have liked to see a better resolution and maybe laid on.
Oh, you
thicker
didn't watch the
message.
4K remaster? I did.
No,
Those
I watched
scars
it
look like shit. The little scars.
I watched
on
it
their
on-
cheeks, like they look terrible. It is so bad.
I watched it on Tubi with an ad blocker, so I didn't get any ads. It's
Oh, wow.
pretty fantastic way to watch
Tubi.
trash. Yeah.
Oh, I want to add something now that
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
done.
no, go ahead.
Oh, just something you said just reminded me of something. Twilight would have been so much better in the 1970s.
The movie Twilight.
Right.
Just because of how many times people just silently look at each other in that movie.
Yeah. Knowing looks.
Specifically. Holy crap.
Knowing
They look at
looks.
each other a lot.
Fuck. 70, like the
Still a terrible
60s,
movie, though.
the 1950s and the 1960s, they were trying new stuff. A lot of the schlock from the 70s, it's like,
Listen, I
Yeah.
got some, but not all in this movie, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
also the pills were a giant misdirect. Thought that was going to be a whole thing. I give this movie a 3.1 out of 5. I also give this movie shooting 3 trees and blowing 3 trees up. out of
Whoa,
3.
you blew up all 3 trees, you
All
sick
3 of them.
fuck, you pervert. I'm a
blew all
stats.
that wood
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm a
Well,
stats
wait,
pervert. is what I
I'm
was gonna say.
sorry.
I think the best line in the movie is the guy when he's like, "I'm a bit of a stats freak, isn't that perverse?"
Yes.
Like, you're like, what the fuck? Who is this guy? I'm pretty sure he's at the party too. Like there's one of the people at the party who has the same voice as that voice that you never see, and I'm like, I'm sure that's the director. The guy who's like, "Do you want to hear about all your own matches that I've memorized? You
Yeah.
injured the most people in any given game at one time last year, 13. What do you think about that? By the way, I'm nude back here behind this one-way mirror.
And pants only. Or no pants, just shirt.
I'm
Donald
wearing my
Duck.
pants as a shirt, and my shirt is a pants."
I'm shooting different kind of wood.
Uh-oh.
That's all I get.
Yeah. Michael made me laugh, and I clicked it again by accident.
That was better. Just before we get the fuck out of here, Michael, do you have anything that you want to plug or promote?
Well, for those of you who haven't seen Popularity Papers, it is on Stack TV and Teletoon, which you're able to subscribe on Amazon Prime. And although it is a family show, I do recommend it for adults, as the writers have made a point of not dumbing down the show for kids, and also having lots of adult references that are great for adults to pick up on. And I also improv in French for the adults. Wink.
Nice.
For Americans, we are on Hulu now. Also, if you want to find me on social media, just my handle everywhere is Michael CW Chan.
All right. Give you
All
another
right,
round of
fantastic.
applause over here.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Michael.
much for
I'm
coming
gonna
on.
give you-
We've been looking forward to having you for so long.
Yeah. I thought this was a good episode, and I want to give you the hey, did you see this one seal of approval? You're welcome to come back anytime that you'd like. I'm formally inviting you back to the show whenever you'd like to come back on. I'll give you a list of movies. And now that you've been on once, it is sort of tradition to have the.
Well, we're going to have you on for the Rollerball remake and the unofficial sequel, Moneyball. Yeah.
Yeah, money, the trilogy.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you, and come back whenever you'd like.
Thank you.
Steve, what do you got? What do you got boiling and cooking?
I got a bunch of things boiling and cooking, but I'm the voice of Darth Theorist, the YouTube channel. I'm the voice of Arcane Archives, the YouTube channel. I'm the voice of some World War II submarine channel. I'm a voice of a lot of channels, but you can check them out on my, like my regular social medias. But I'm also going to be in the game Dominica that's coming out in November. Look that up. It's pretty cool. There's also a cartoon show called I can't remember what it's called, but it's coming from Synopsis Studios. It's about little rocks giving each other information about rocks. I'm going to be a bunch of voices on that, which is kind of cool too. So yeah, look me up if you need voices for stuff. I got a million of them over here.
And ironically, it's just, hey, what's going on over here? Because that's the only voice I can do. You can find me on this podcast pretty much exclusively. Hey, did you see this one? Can be found on every single platform. We are a proud card-carrying member of the United Federation of Podcasts, which I'm
also the voice for that. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you are also the voice of that, which we'll find out in just a moment. Also, I am a professional wrestling announcer here in Toronto. Unfortunately, it's not unfortunate that there is a show tomorrow. There is a show tomorrow at the Great Hall here in Toronto. It's called Super Kicked Paradise. It's going to be a great show. It's champion versus champion in the main event. However, I'm going to see Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth Distant World Symphony. So I had to say, sorry guys, Final Fantasy comes first. That's not true. They switched the date on me mid-show last month. Anyway, I digress. So to go back to this show, you can find us on every single piece of social media you can find in existence. We put up our on-demand episode every Friday. That's tomorrow from here on YouTube. You'll be able to find that shortly after this has aired. I look forward to everybody giving their opinion on this episode. It was very fun, super kicked, and I'll cover the outro as I always do. Hey, Michael, there's just one question. There's just one simple question that you have to ask yourself, and everybody has to ask themselves and each other each and every week. And that question is, of course,
hey, did you see this one?
Tell me a joke about Rollerball.
I don't know if I have time. I gotta go take a small little tiny pill that I keep inside of a little tin container inside of my tuxedo. I take them once a day. I mean, sometimes I take them twice a day, but my doctor says once a day, and then I take a long shower. A long, relaxing.
Well, the corporation hasn't taken my wife away yet, so I should probably go join her.
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. Artistic interviews with graphic histories. A roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.